Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first of 3 episodes dedicated to Transformers Robots in Disguise. I was trying to make a joke related to Transformers the movie in this episode, which turned into me and Ender shouting at each other, or me shouting at Ender and him basically just talking over me like he always does. He has told me specifically several times, if I'm talking too much, just tell me to shut up. So, that's what I did. But he kept talking and kept talking and kept talking. I love working with Ender. He's awesome. It turned into a little funny bit, but I just wanted to give people a little preface as far as to the content of this episode of the Pull Bag. Thank you very much.
Hi, this is Dan Gilvazan, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Oh my gosh, this is so great.
Welcome to the Pull Bag. Join us as we dig out our latest comics and discuss them with the rotating panel of the GCRN crew. So sit back and enjoy this week's Pull Bag.
If you're gonna ride, Dano, ride in style.
Pathetic fools! There's no escape!
Hello and welcome to the Pull Bag. I am your host, TFG Mike, and returning to the show is Ender.
Yep, returning once again as part of my community service.
Yeah, that's not doing the community a service.
That's why I make these podcasts so long. I'm trying to get my 36 hours in.
Right. And because we at the Pull Bag are not a He-Man woman haters club, joining us is Lady Reg from the Underbase.
Woo! Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Now, just for some background, over at the Underbase, if anyone listened to episode 15 of the Pull Bag, they would have found out that Lady Reg does the More Than Meets the Eye reviews with them. But I've been planning on making that joke since we first even set up doing these Robots in Disguise reviews, because every episode that you do the news for the RID reviews, Matt's like, okay, Amy, see you later, bye, you're out.
Yeah, we're booting you out. It's the men that are going to take over because it's the boys club. And I'm like, yeah. It's all about him. Oh, goodness.
So that's why Lady Rec is here on the Pull Bag, so she can have her own say on the other Transformers ongoing Robots in Disguise.
Yeah.
And over the next 3 episodes, just like Ender and I did in More Than Meets the Eye, episodes 11, 12, and 13 of the Pull Bag, we're going to spend the next 3 episodes talking about each of the currently released volumes for RID.
And I haven't gotten to review... Well, actually, this is true of More Than Meets the Eye as well as for the earlier ones, but I haven't gotten to review these properly ever, because I didn't start until, somewhere in the teens reviewing again. Yep. And even then, I do non-spoilers, so I never get to do the fun...
See, that's why I love podcasting. We can spoil the shit out of anything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
I enjoy spoiling. This week, my More Than Meets the Eye review was so non-spoiler, there was hardly anything in it. It was like everything was a spoiler in there. I couldn't say anything. Only in More Than Meets the Eye is it like, you know what, I can't show that panel even though no one's talking, because showing that one character is still alive is a spoiler. It's like,
well, you could have shown
so many people are about to die.
You could have shown the word balloons.
I could no, but they're full of spoiler stuff for the most part. I thought I did pretty good putting in the onomatopoeia.
Nice.
Seriously, I isolated all the onomatopoeia from the issue. I think I missed like one of them somewhere in there. There's a click I didn't get, but otherwise, like most of the images I put in the review were just like, choom, Kazark,
Because those are the only ones where, you could see something get shot at, but you don't know who.
Oh, I didn't even keep the shooting at. I just took the word out. I actually cut the words out.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I spent most of the review making fun of James Roberts for writing books that I can't critique. It's like another great book. What the hell am I supposed to do with this?
I think I said this over on the Underbase forums or over on the Full Metal Hero forums, is that I get it's an old Marvel reference, but I'm so sick of seeing Choom as a word explosion. I'm really like, it was nice when Shockwave did it in Rid 17, but after that, it's like, holy crap! Do they really have to use that every single issue?
I never noticed that.
I didn't even know it
noticed
was a
the
Marvel
words.
reference.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. I think
I think it's
you must have a particular sensitivity for overused
no, but it's like
onomatopoeia. I know only because it's a name of someone else. I kind of chuckle every time I see it go, Krang.
yeah, I know.
I'm like, really, Krang?
When's that brain gonna get a body? All right, so let's give some.
The new Ninja Turtles is awesome, by the way, and everyone who's listening.
I've heard good things. I just haven't had a chance to read it yet. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I mean the show. I haven't read it either.
Oh, the show is great too.
I've read the animated adventures based off the show, and I've seen the show. I have yet to. I actually have sitting over to my right on my desk. I have the first 2 volumes of the current ongoing series, and I plan on getting the other 4. Because by the time I get to getting the other 4, Volume 6, City Fall Part 1 would be out. But I haven't even touched the Turtles comic yet. I can't. I don't have the time to do so.
Yeah.
I tried the new video game this morning. It is distinctly mediocre. I'll see if can I get us any more off topic?
That's
right.
what you do best. So getting
that was
back
just my warning shot. I just wanted to remind everyone I could do that.
Yes, we know. Let's give some overall thoughts on when each of you first started. When did you guys first discover Robots in Disguise? Like, was it? I know, Ender, you said you started reviewing around the teens, but were you already reading it as just a regular reader beforehand?
I think I might have picked up one of them, but actually, what I'd been doing is I dropped out reading in the middle of Costa, both because I was stopping reviewing. And I said, like, I'm not going to read this anymore because it stinks. And I totally thought I was bluffing. But it actually did stink, so I never went back and read it. And so...
Yeah, I was your replacement, too.
Yeah, I left you to deal with it. Like, here, have this giant mess. I'm leaving. And
I didn't blame you either. I stuck with it for a whole 2 years.
Yeah, I read your reviews and lived in terror of them because I knew not to come back.
Yeah.
It's like I'm point someone I trust to read these for me. I'll have a proxy read these for me, and then if they're ever good enough, I'll start reading again.
Yep.
It didn't happen.
When it finally happened, I was saying, "Hey, it's time to read them now," and you're like,
"Yeah,
I'll
that's
think
true." You did. In the end, you finally made me. But and I had been clamoring when I left for. I said that Roberts should be the writer, and of course, there was only one series at the time. So I was excited to learn when Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye were coming out that he was one of them, and I heard nothing but good things about Barber, though I wasn't familiar with him. So I actually started picking up the trades and just putting them in a closet on top of my other Transformers comics, and I hadn't read them until if I felt assured they were not going to tick me off, and with Lady Rex recommendation, as it were. So that was when I started reading them. I knew I'd heard they'd been good for a while. I just was a little shell-shocked still, I think, frankly. Well, and plus, I'm somebody, I don't want to read a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know what's going on in it. So to really read them, I kind of felt like, okay, now I have to go back and read all that godforsaken Costa I'd been avoiding so I can properly enjoy these, especially if I was going to review them. I can't review something if I have no idea what's, going on half the time in your comic. So it was a big endeavor. I spent to read this book, I probably spent 2 weeks reading, 30, 50 other ones. I was reading 12 comics a day for days on end. Or when I ran out and had to wait for a week for a comic, I had withdrawal symptoms. So that was when I got back into these and read these. So I actually, before my first reading of this, I probably kind of blazed through it because I had at least one more of these to go through that week, so I could review the next one that was coming out the week after. So this was a nice revisitation because I did kind of blaze through it the first time.
Yeah. What about you, Amy? How did you first come to? Did you start out with More Than Meets the Eye, or did you start out with this?
No, I started out with both of them actually. I was getting them as they were coming out because on the Underbase we have it set up so like we have with IDW. So I was like, I saw it before it even came out. I
just told you I left her up to her neck in Costa.
Yeah, after okay. So when they said they were doing 2 ongoings, and one of them was going to be written by James Roberts, and one's going to be written by John Barber, I was on cloud 8. I was like, I was on such a good mood. I was like, I was counting down the issues from Chaos to the time when we were going to get Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye. So for me, it was like I had been following it. Like if I was ready for it 6 months before it actually was published. So for me, I was pretty much following it from day one. I couldn't wait. I was just waiting around and, hoping for the best, waiting for the day when it was going to be, given over by IDW, which is, we usually get it about 5 days before it's released so that we can get a chance to read it, think about it. And sometimes life makes it so that we can't really get that much in. So we have to kind of review on the fly at sometimes, and it depends. It depends on a lot of things. So, for the most part, yeah, I've been following both of the series from the very beginning, and I was completely ecstatic about it.
I think you gave me the all clear back then, but I think my reaction was something kind of like, yeah, let's see. If in 6 months you still feel that way, I'll try.
Exactly. I was like, dude, it's James Roberts. He wrote Wreckers. I was like, yeah, we'll wait. I was like, all right, okay, I'm doing my job. I'm just trying to, wave a little treat in front of your face and see if you'll take it.
It's like, that's great. I'll be in the bomb shelter until September.
And that
Which
was
is surprisingly when this episode will air. For me, after Ender pretty much shocked me into reality with More Than Meets the Eye, I wasn't even going to pick up Rid. I wasn't even going to pick it up in trade. I wasn't going to do anything with it. I was happy with More Than Meets the Eye. And then what happened was, this is so stupid. My local comic shop, I told them I would like More Than Meets the Eye Volume 2 and 3. I didn't find them. I didn't see them on their shelves where they keep the trades. And then I found Volume 3, and they're like, oh, we'll have to order Volume 2. I'm like, okay. Well, they, for some stupid reason, ordered me Volume 2 and Rid Volume 1. I didn't even say anything about Rid Volume 1 whatsoever to them. I said nothing about that. So it was just there, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess. I'll get around to it when I get around to it, and now we're finally getting to it. And
it was me. Remember, I called your comic shop. It's all part of my cunning plan to make you read Transformers.
Yeah. Thank God it isn't the Costa run.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done that to you.
I was actually surprised.
Just to be cruel and unusual.
I was actually surprised, Ender, when you went ahead and went back and read Casa. I said, you don't need to read Casa to read Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye. He's like, no, I got to do it. I was like, all right, I warned you.
Well, I'm glad I did it in terms of when I talk about, the comics now, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I think that shows. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who only kind of half get it, that sometimes it's just like, well, you're saying that, but you don't know what this is and this other thing. So even if they're gauging what they're looking at correctly, they're off base.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm only looking. I'm not reviewing 1,000 comics a month. It's one set. I can keep up with one set of 5-year-old comics. I was reading Regeneration 1 and was like, you know what? I never caught up on my Marvel, so I read all of Marvel.
Still haven't read all the Marvel yet.
It was rewarding. I mean, I do feel like I know what I'm talking about, 30% more of the time now. It's like, oh yeah, that thing. I know what that is.
Yep.
And not just because I, read it on the Transformers wiki. I actually read that issue. Cool. I saw that.
See, I'm actually perfectly fine going to the wiki and just looking up the old stuff, and
and dragging me on so somebody knows what they're talking about.
Well, yeah, but you enjoy it. Shut the fuck up.
Well, and this is the reason why I'm on
I
Regeneration
enjoy it, but
is because I'm representing the fan out there that's getting it because I never read all of Marvel, and how my perspective will be affected by that, having never read any of the other stuff.
Yeah, see, and I'm the same way. I've never read any of the Marvel stuff. It's not that I don't want to, or it's not that I don't care to. I just haven't done it. And I'm one of those people that if you set something up, like if you tell me that Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye are new, they're, beginning, middle, end, whatever, I'm fine. I don't have to go back and read the last 30 years of Transformers comics.
Yeah.
And I'm just one of those people who likes knowing what they're talking about.
That's because you're attentive.
That's what my co-hosts are for. They cover all of those bases in that. So.
Yes, exactly. All right, so before Ender derails this track anymore, I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get into Volume 1 of Robots in Disguise after this.
No kind words from me?
So, Robots in Disguise, Volume 1. The front cover has, for the trade, has Ironhide, Bumblebee, Wheeljack, and Prowl on it, with Cybertron in the background.
Ironhide is doing his best fist punch pose.
And Cybertron is a lie.
Yeah. Cybertron's a lie, and Bumblebee is pointing into the sky.
Yep.
That's Cybertron before, Costa flattened it.
Morphed it into nothing. It's just a globule on your...
What is that old cartoon? Le world, she is flat. No, le world, she is round.
This world's pretty flat. I don't know.
That one looks like it's got a lot of cities and stuff on it. And yeah, the Cybertron that we get to know in Robots in Disguise is not like that. There are no cities. There's one city, and that's it.
Yeah.
And the whole rest of it is all wilderness.
Yeah.
Has yet to be untouched, uncharted.
See, that's the coolest thing about, at least from when I read the series, from when I read this first trade, I thought that was the coolest thing about it, was that, sure, pictures of Cybertron, whether it's in animation or drawn in a comic book, you have to show some semblance of what most general Transformers fans know Cybertron to look like.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was a planet with a bunch of trees, they're like, Transformers don't live there. They do if they're Predacons.
True.
This Cybertron is the result of, this is going to be a theme of what I'm talking about, because this is, as opposed to More Than Meets the Eye, which is the screw this, we're out of here book, this Robots in Disguise got stuck with all of Costa's baggage.
Pretty much.
And,
yeah.
I don't know where the idea to, put half of them on a ship and get the heck out of Dodge came from, but it was brilliant, because it was like, yeah, that whole continuity you had going on, we're going to go hang out over here instead. But Robots in Disguise, it bears the scars of, Costa's slash and burn sort of, what's that guy's name who work on Batman now? Morrison.
Grant Morrison.
Grant Morrison, yeah. Costa suffered from what I like to call Grant Morrison syndrome, which is when you're leaving a book, you try to burn it to the ground. so you can affect it. Like, what you really want to do is tell a story so epic that it is the last story ever. Because, he literally just like flattens. I mean, like they do stuff in Death of Optimus Prime to, rework some of this, but it's sort of like he kills Megatron, he ostensibly kills Prime, he like takes the cyber out of Cybertron, and
so he's basically Beast Wars Megatron.
Lays waste to all the Decepticons, so there's like a hunk of rock in space and some dead some dead Decepticons and some Autobots standing there, and he's like, here, have fun, tell some stories with that.
It does make it. This is the one thing I did like about it, though. I mean, it can be both a weakness and a strength, and I think that both Barber and Roberts have turned it into a strength, because it gave them a baseline to start from, and so they can build up from there. Whereas I think before Costa, it seemed like a lot, and this is something that I figured out as I was, getting into the comics and reading them. It felt like to me that every individual story they did was self-contained, and it was suffering because of its self-containment. There was no, at least I felt like, you go from the Asian series to the mini series and the spotlights, and then All Hail Megatron, and it just felt like every story was like not necessarily starting over from scratch again, but it felt like the continuity between the two didn't always match up. And so for me, I thought, well, I might not be a real fan of Costa, but the one thing he did do when he left was he gave him a baseline to kind of like start from base up, and they could rebuild everything, which that's why I enjoyed it. But
I think he
did on purpose.
They're not doing well because he gave them a baseline.
No, I think he didn't do it on purpose.
I think their strength as writers is doing a great job of countermanding the mess he left, frankly. I think that, it's not like they're turning what he did into a strength. It's that they're carrying the burden well. I really do think they are. And I think we have great writers now. And this is what, when you came and found me in the bunker to tell me that the comics were better, it's like, great, we have great writers now who can get the job done. That's fantastic. Let me know when they're finished digging their way out of Costa's hole. Because that's the first thing they're going to have to do.
Yeah.
Now, Roberts didn't have to do as much digging because he had like one issue of digging. He was like, and this is the part where I literally leave your entire continuity somewhere else.
Yep.
I am going to pack a ship full of everyone your continuity doesn't really touch.
It was the first issue,
and
actually.
I'm going to make up a whole bunch. Yeah, exactly. That's just it. He put down that shovel and like built himself a ladder and climbed out and was like, yeah, have fun with that hole. And this is the hole though, is what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Because now this is what really has to deal with that. I think I like Barber's writing. I think he does a great job of really addressing things. I would say he's probably the right person to dig you out of a hole like this.
Yeah.
But it's a hole.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
It's a hole. And let's go ahead and dig out of that hole with the copy. The war for Cybertron is over. Now the hard part begins. Bumblebee and his... What?
Right there. That's the problem number one. The war is over. Don't even... Why pretend... How many books start with that on it? How many times has the war ended in IDW? Has there ever been a war?
Yeah, really.
How can the war end if you keep, anyway, I'm just right there. We hit that.
But I think that's the thing with IDW. They seem to think with these books that every fan like us that's around our age, that has been around for nearly 30 years of Transformers, we've seen the war in the cartoons and stuff like that. So it's like, and I understand where you're coming from too, Ender. I get it. You want to see a war. You want to see the 4 million year war at some point. You know what I mean? I understand
I'd like
that.
To see it, but more than that, it's gotten ridiculous because it's like the whole of IDW's run is George Bush standing on the aircraft carrier with the mission accomplished thing behind him. And it's like, not quite.
All right, back to this.
20 years later, we tend to disagree. And now it's like, 200 issues later, the war is still over. But I seem to see people shooting at each other on every page. So.
Well, the thing is that you have a war over, yes, that's the main, cliche conflict that everybody kind of goes to. And the same can be said in other comics where they have a huge overarching conflict, that's a big war between two factions, in a sense. One believes one thing, one believes another. That's a war. But the thing is that I think they've tried it in the past to say, oh, the war's over. But it was like, I don't believe you. It was half-hearted. And this, I actually feel like the war is over. And now we have to figure out the brilliant thing about what Robots in Disguise does is it shows that the main conflict might not be over, but the conflict still exists in the individuals.
Yeah.
Well, plus, frankly, the war stays over in this book for what, like a whopping 12 issues or something?
Yeah.
And that's about the biggest extent the war has stayed over yet. But
you'd expect that when certain characters come back because they are so huge in their charisma is so big, they're bigger than life that, there's going to be a war like conflict come back because that's who they are. That's who's defined. That's how they've been defined in Transformers for so long that, it makes sense that that's how it's going to be.
I agree. My point
Especially
is
when they pull
largely
out those
more
old
semantic.
pistols.
My point is largely more semantic, which is IDW needs to be banned from saying the war is over as a tagline for like a period of decades.
It's
They've
become
totally
a cliche.
overused it.
It's become a cliche. And
IDW, where the war is always over. It's just like, if I read a series, man, it's going to be called The Hell It Is, and we're.
It's the knee-jerk phrase that needs to stop.
Yes, it does. Bumblebee and his fellow Autobots struggle to maintain control of a world without Optimus Prime. Bumblebee's provisional government is struggling and Prowl is defending it against Decepticons, but how far will he go and who will choose to stand by his side? Now, I remember when I first read Death of Optimus Prime, and I think I talked to you about this, Amy. I can't see Bumblebee as the leader of anything. I just can't.
Dude, I so thought I was going to have to bring this up. I was feeling bad because I was like, I've already interrupted this intro like 3 times. I can't stop the intro to mention how ridiculous the premise of Bumblebee being the leader is. But there it is. It's the deepest mire of Costa's hole, frankly.
It is
the Bumblebee in charge.
And I have to see, I agree, because if I didn't know anything about Robots in Disguise or More Than Meets Eye or IDW or anything, the simple concept of saying that Bumblebee is in charge and Optimus Prime is not in charge anymore, I'm like, I can't see it. Sorry.
It's such an untenable concept, I think, to anyone who knows the franchise at all. That
if they know the character anyway.
Yeah, page to page, it's distracting. And I think it's a problem, and this is where it's the least problem in some ways, because this is right when he inherited said problem. So I wouldn't expect him to be able to get rid of it in 10 seconds, not responsibly anyway. But as we, I don't think anyone would deny that Robots in Disguise is the less universally hailed of the 2 books. And I think a lot of that reason is frankly because it's kind of Bumblebee and the Transformers, and it doesn't make any goddamn sense. And it's been, I applaud Barbara for trying to deal with it, but in a lot of ways, it's like he really should have swept it under the rug faster, because it was his biggest problem. And as we go through this book and the successive ones, it's just gonna keep welling up that we're still clinging to what was like a gimmick from 4 years ago as like a standing premise of our book.
Yeah. So, Rid number 1, cover A, is Ironhide, and he's gonna bash some brains in.
Yep.
He's ready to fist stomp people.
Candidate number 1, who would be like a better idea that we could discuss. Oh, look, and if we turn the page, we get and I think in this entire trade, we get 1 picture of Jazz, which IDW seems to have forgotten to give a character, who should also probably be in charge.
But if Jazz was in charge, it would be a giant party.
True.
Oh wait, that's what Swerve's for. Oh wait, Swerve is out in space. Whoops.
Oops. Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Jazz
is why Jazz is going to hang out at Blur's.
Yeah. His complete dereliction of duty is the only explanation I can think of for why he really hasn't been in charge since way back when. I mean, if you want to, on the Bumblebee front, in terms of, I think you have to say who should be, what's going on. There's a few candidates. I think the primary ones would be Ironhide, who I think is probably the best choice in a lot of ways for story reasons. Prowl, for logical, he's the second in command. They're a military unit. When Optimus Prime left, he should have just been in charge, and there shouldn't have been any discussion about it. If there was any, it would have been if he abdicated to Jazz because he doesn't want to be in charge, and that's what they did in All Hail Megatron. When Prime was removed.
See, now I disagree, because that's exactly what Prowl does. He becomes like the guy behind everything, and Bumblebee is the figurehead. He
does, and when we get to that issue, I'll talk about that. But
yeah,
Barbara does do that well, but then it gets circumvented, and even that I think is like, now we have to do work and waste time to explain why this is getting circumvented. but in terms of his actual like being there, supposedly they had an election in which no one ran for it, right?
Mm.
But they elect Bumblebee, and he just has to take it apparently.
Well, that was
And
from
it just
Toss's
strikes the-
time. They did a vote, and he was
I know,
voted
it's like,
it.
well, it's like you're in the army, right?
Yeah.
And the general leaves, and there's 2 colonels, 3 captains, 5 lieutenants, 10 sergeants, and a bunch of schlubs. And like you elect Private Johnson to be in charge. It doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, I think like maybe the colonels should be the ones we're voting on. You know what I mean? Like, I could see electing Jazz over Prowl. He's, less likely to kill you for
Why
sure.
am I envisioning Optimus Prime as the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket and Bumblebee as Private Gomer Pyle?
See, well, yeah, it's kind of, well, I think it's more like Ironhide as the drill sergeant, at least. It's just like somebody more capable, even if they're not an ideal choice. It just seems like electing the private or the private accepting it is hysterically irresponsible. And it just reads like that all the time. And even when they're trying to elevate Bumblebee up to the position, or even when they're showing him fumbling at it, I feel like the reader is always forced to question, why is this happening? And I think that takes you out of the book. And I think it's been, Barber has been carrying this book with a mini fridge tied to his leg for the whole, run. And it's like, dude, I think you'd go a little faster if you took that off.
I tell you what,
And he's carrying it brilliantly, I think, but I'd really rather see what he could do without it.
And that might happen. We might get that next for the next season, and who knows?
I have high hopes
Cybertron will probably
after Dark Cybertron, we will see the end of the reign of Bumblebee. But it's still been like 20 issues, so this is going to go on for a while.
Well, and I kind of
tell
look
you
at
what,
the fact too that, and this is something that the death of Optimus Prime kind of set up. After chaos happened and everything was in shambles, some people hadn't even been found. Like Optimus Prime is not found for like 3 or 4 weeks after the event. So that being said, I think, and you're right, he is in the line of duty. Bumblebee is definitely not up on the roll, but somebody took charge, and I think that the base elements were put into effect. They wake up and they set up an HQ and a communication hub and something to start from, and then people start showing up, and then things get super crazy. And the only one that was running the show at the time was Bumblebee and his little group of people that were with him, which would be Prowl.
Right, but Bumblebee was only in charge theoretically because of his position as leader on Earth, which he never Costa never managed to even make him a convincing leader there.
True.
I just feel like with flattened Cybertron,
the idea
somebody else would have been a better choice.
The idea of it's a military group is like that's kind of what they were trying to undo by making him the leader, is the fact that he's not in charge as a military person. But they kind of try to shift him out of that role because supposedly the war is over, and make him kind of like, in a sense, a civilian leader that's very versed in the military goings-on of the Cybertronians. So that's where it was kind of believable to me, at least, is the fact that that's what they're trying to undo, is that we're not fighting a war anymore, even though people are in their heads.
But they're not really trying to undo it yet then, are they? I mean, but the points where he's still in charge, I mean, isn't it more like he's still in charge of the military, but the military's in charge of the planet still because there's no government? I mean, that happens a lot.
I would say that Prowl is in charge of the military aspect of it because he's the guy that's running security.
Yeah, but no more than he was when Prime was in charge.
True, but that's how they're kind of shifting the military aspect of Cybertron at the time, is shifting it under your security now.
But everyone else still has their ranks and their everything.
True, I know, but like
they're still the military. Bumblebee was not elected president. Bumblebee was elected general. And they're still, and by the time when they're in Cybertron, he's in charge because he was who was in charge when Optimus left. It's not like they're not trying to do anything political when the nails start showing up.
True.
They don't know that yet. He's just who's in charge. I think you're making a very good reasoning for it, but I don't think it fits with the timeline.
I beg to differ.
Okay.
The next
We'll just
page,
agree
we
to
have,
disagree then.
we have a
It wasn't
beautiful.
doesn't, and that's good because you represent the fans that are not feeling it, and I represent those that probably are. Like the idea of what they're doing works to that extent for me.
So we have a beautiful splash page where you see the city and, as Ender said, jazz and everything else. And I didn't until now because I was more focused. When I read through this book the first time, I was more focused on the actual blurbs and the writing than the actual images. And I so totally missed Skylinks right there.
Yeah, I like the Skylings flying through the sky. There's a lot of interesting stuff here and there in here.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of fun stuff actually. It's
But
great.
I'll tell you, the one thing that
There's Mirage and
immediately-
Blue Streak, who also outrank Bumblebee.
I'll tell you the first thing, because as everyone knows, I read More Than Meets the Eye before this. And I'm one of those people, I'll read something, I need to go back and look at it to remind myself what the hell happened. And what took me out of this book is one line from Bumblebee's little speech here. Rodimus said we should leave them to it, but then he died. And I'm like, no, he didn't.
Well, he doesn't know that.
Of course,
Well,
they don't know
in
that.
story,
Yeah.
that's what he believes.
Right.
Yeah.
I understand that, but
In the lower right page, does anybody else see the Boba Fett bot?
Yeah.
yeah.
And Huey, Dewey, and Louie are on the other side there.
Yep.
Yep.
Fantastic. There are lots of little fun things on this 2-page splash. It was just, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a nice image. It really, really is. And pages like this is what is so cool to throw in all these different characters. Like, isn't that Trax on the right? Behind the purple bot? Could have sworn. There's so many cool things. And then
Is it just me, or will the settlement never look this nice again?
Probably not, actually. This is the best looking part of it, actually.
I almost feel like it's like an early misconception in the drawing. Like he didn't know how trashy to draw it the first time.
Well, because in a
'Cause
sense,
it never looks this good again.
yeah, well, that's because more fighting
This is
starts
true.
after
They do
this.
st-
This is
So-
at the prime of everybody's. Hey, we've arrived. We're happy to see each other. We're in the happy times, right? Months from now, we're going to be sad.
We're gonna start
So
blowing
I
these
think-
hovels up.
I didn't even really notice that on the cover either. Wow, that's sad that I didn't notice that. It took me till the third page of this, where you have Bumblebee giving a President Bush speech, to realize, hey, the aligned continuity comes in because he has the War for Cybertron design.
Yay!
See, I don't disapprove of it here because it wasn't like pre-planned that way, and him having a Cybertronian alt mode on Cybertron.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm not
no one
saying
has
it-
to explain it,
Right. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense.
I was
I
like,
mean,
I'm just saying, yeah, it's noticeable, but the only time it's a problem is when anytime you have to stop and explain why something is like that,
yeah.
and
And
he
I can
turns
tell
into a
that-
squirrel because that's when it gets to be a little dicey.
And just on these 2 pages alone, I can already tell I'm not going to like Metal Hawk.
Yeah.
He's a jerk.
And Captain Shoulder Pads. You got to look at this guy and just think okay, so the 7-foot wide shoulders weren't good enough. You had to add the wings, huh?
We didn't learn anything from Ultra Magnus being able to walk through doors. We had to outdo him. They had to have that guy, right? Every
Wouldn't you love to see
version,
that?
every group has to have that guy that can't fit through the doors. That's Metal Hawk's position in this book.
He's almost worse than Ultra Magnus. I mean, Ultra Magnus had the shoulders, sure, but I mean, you'd have to get this through. People would have to help him through a couch. No, okay, back, and then try and work that part around here, and then. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Either
funny.
that or else he'll have cut holes in the, right where
It's so
his.
funny.
People look
Wing
carefully. You have
tips
to
are-
one shot with the door somewhere. The Metal Hawk's wings are in little outlines or on the side.
This is why we always see him most of the time outside. We don't see him walking through things.
You know, and the next page, on the right-hand side of it, shows two Decepticons, one of whom has a gold bug head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so...
You know, I've been observing that universally in all the comics, Needlenose is universally portrayed as a dick. He's always being some like hysterical jackass. Whatever the worst thing somebody could be doing in an environment, it's Needlenose. It's always him. He's like right there, front and center.
Well, now that he has his hands back,
yeah.
now that he has his hands back, he has a reason to be grumpy and just kind of take it out on everybody. So yeah, there you go.
For a second there, I thought she was talking about Ratchet.
Ratchet didn't lose his hands.
Yes, he did.
Okay. I was thinking.
Capit has his winter cap on too.
Well, now that you talk about it, I mean, yeah, each group again back to this whole thing, the thing with the shoulders, now the hands. both continuities seem to have, or both robots in disguise more than meets the eye have a character on there who have lost hands and have gotten them back at one point or another. Oh, the irony! Wahaha.
Yeah. So this page that I mentioned with I think is that Turnbull? The guy I said looks has a gold bug.
Horrible. And what do you know? Horrible is being horrible.
Oh, God, that is the worst name for a Transformer ever.
I know.
So they're accosting this nail. Which anybody want to explain what a nail is?
A non-aligned Cybertronian. What did they say? Non-affiliated indigenous life forms. So that's where you get the nails.
It's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, but I'm kind of glad that they did that, though.
Could have been worse. Could have been Nest.
True. That's true. That's very true.
Oh,
Nest, yeah.
Yeah, between...
Not really means anything. Not that works with it anyway, but nothing they made up for it did either. So
no, it didn't. It seems like every single time I read it, it means something else.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think Barber tried most recently. Actually, I can't remember what he came up with, but it was the best one yet. I'll grant him that.
Yeah.
But
and then they changed it again, and I was like, why didn't they go back to that one again? It sounded better.
So they should just call it ARC and say it was like Autobot Recon Command. How hard would that would have been?
Wow.
Come on.
Cool. And it would actually make sense too.
Yeah. That's what
I guess because
they just need to hire you, Ender.
Well, yeah, it helps if you hire someone to write the Transformers thing who like knows jack or shit about them.
Okay.
Wow.
And back to the comic again because we keep on railroading here.
Well, derailing on this train is with Ender is it's one
Easy.
whole other thing. That's why for any of the listeners, if you're wondering why it's taken us 27 minutes to even get like 5 pages into the book, it's all Ender's fault. So anyone that wants to complain about a 2.5-hour episode, there's nothing I can do about it because I ain't cutting any of this shit out.
Just send your complaints to Ender.
Yes.
And set some time aside for the response.
Yes. I'm not a political person at all. In my personal opinion, all politicians are corrupt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the whole political thing behind Robots in Disguise, I don't really care. I mean,
it's not really
I care,
even political,
but I don't.
It's just
like
gaming. There's not enough infrastructure for it to be as political as what we consider politics to be.
Yeah.
Well, right, but the thing
it's more like high school.
Oh God! You'll be right. You'll be right when a certain Decepticon switches sides later. But yeah, you're right. It's like, hey, can I come join this clique, guys? My other one kicked me out.
Yeah. This is
Cybertron. Not necessarily what happens.
People like to talk about it like it's House of Cards in space, but it's not. It's it's Decepticon high school.
Now, see. For me,
it's what happens when Autobot High School and Decepticon High School have to move into the same building.
Now that's a comic I would read.
Yeah.
Now see, for me, in the last 30 years, Transformers has been around, and knowing what I do know about the cartoons and all that stuff, I just don't see Soundwave being a submissive to Ratbat. I just don't see Ratbat as a friggin' senator.
It was never meant like that. It was like those guys were just kind of stepping back to see what Ratbat was going to do, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
They were holding the cards. They were playing their poker faces. They were like, okay, we're gonna play nice. We're gonna, wait and see what happens. And where we want to, start manipulating things. They basically step back to see the idiot walk forward and say, I'm going to run things because I'm a senator. Ha ha ha! Look at me. I'm really awesome. And you know what? That was for the most part working in their favor.
We know more than that now too, though. Really, what they Soundwave and Shockwave to some extent probably are up to their butts in cahoots with Megatron, doing stuff already.
Yeah. We find that out.
They're like, yeah, Rat Trap, whatever. I mean, you got to remember, Soundwave literally cannot speak through this entire
He said
story.
Rat Trap. There are no beasts in this book.
Not yet.
No, but he can't speak here. They refer at one point to his voice thing being broken.
Yeah.
So Soundwave literally isn't talking. And
that's because he got shot.
And Shockwave, every time he opens his mouth, only says, yeah, whatever, dude. Good luck with that.
Yeah, basically, we'll see how this plays out. Just let it go.
He's saying coy crap because we don't even know what he's up to yet. He knows Megatron's plan and he knows somebody else's and he knows whatever he's doing. So he doesn't Rat Trap. I'm sorry,
He did it again.
Oh well,
Ratbat. There you go.
Ratbat. Well, in 5 minutes it'll be Rat Trap in this book. What do you want me to tell you?
5 minutes, that bat'll be dead.
Yeah.
So this is what I liked.
It's a blip to them.
The first issue. It pretty much sets in stone where everybody is, what conflicts they're having to deal with, and who the other thing that it set up, and I thought was kind of fun, is the fact that Prowl basically has to play dad to everybody, which is not really great at, because he's having to, watch the nails to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But then on the next page, as we haven't yet gotten to it, he's having to keep all of the Decepticons in check as well. So it's like he's having to run his job twice as much. And all because, he's been put into this position where he had to let the Decepticons go because all of the nails were rioting in Death of Optimus Prime. So to deal with that issue, they supposedly put these ID chips in every Decepticon's head so that if they start doing something they shouldn't, they're just going to kill them.
Well, you see why? Why is Barbara pulling a J.J. Abrams?
I know. The illusion of it helped for a little while, but
I know the illusion of it helped for a little while, and then of course down the line, and we'll get to it. I don't think it's in this issue, but we'll get to it where the Decepticons were like, yeah, hey, we don't have to worry about this anymore.
They probably took all of 2 days, and then it was irrelevant. But they go around and play as if that's what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I think, even though he's saddled with Bumblebee, Barber's doing the right thing in this book, and he does for the next few, with Prowl of, A, in terms of efficacy, and B, in terms of his attitude. Bumblebee shouldn't be in charge, and really can't be. If you really read this, Bumblebee doesn't do anything. He talks about crap, but Prowl put the ID chips in people. Prowl set the Decepticons out to go patrol the streets. Prowl made this decision. They go and talk, and Prowl hardly listens to him.
Oh, and Prowl is also...
When he says, I command and you're in charge, so I listen to you. Yep. I memorized your insights, and I moved on to the next topic.
Yep.
He's like, I deferred to you just long enough to listen to your crap. And then he went back to what he was saying before Bumblebee interrupted him, which was, Ratbat is going to be a problem. He goes right back to his agenda. Prowl is kind of in charge here. And Prowl does that correctly, because frankly, I don't see why Prowl wouldn't have taken charge long ago.
Because if he does, he becomes the figurehead, and he can't do anything if he's the person in charge, which is why he wants Bumblebee to be in charge. Because he can work underneath that.
And this is nice and portrayed correctly, and the problem is, though,
that's the same
continuity-wise.
That's the same agenda that he had when Optimus Prime was in charge, except Optimus Prime also could rule. But for Prowl, he's like, you know what? He doesn't need somebody to be his boss. He just needs somebody to be a figurehead. And that's what Bumblebee does.
Yeah, Prowl does want to. He does not want to be in charge. He wants to be. He'd rather
So-
be second in command. But I don't think he.
So basically, Prowl is Padme and Bumblebee is Queen Amidala.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which makes
Well, and
sense.
I
He
think-
calls him King Bee. Woohoo!
I think part of the problem for me, and this isn't a problem when I say like this is notable that Barber is doing it correctly because 10 minutes ago, while Costa was doing these same couple of characters, he wasn't doing it correctly. He had changed Prowl to be his limp, wet noodle, Sunbow cartoon self,
Yeah.
and was just kind of standing behind Bumblebee like, "What should we do? You're so much smarter than me." It's like intolerant, and had to make issue after issue to try and explain why Prowl would do that because it made no sense.
Yeah.
The other
And
thing that
why can't we have an Ironhide toy like this? I want an Ironhide toy, just like how he's depicted on this page in that alt mode. That's awesome.
All you need is a head and a repainted Soundwave, right?
Well, Soundwave
not
looks a
quite,
little longer than this, but yeah, technically you're right.
The front end grill's pretty similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was more interested in reading this first issue. I was more interested in what Ironhide was doing than I was
Well, I was about to
with
say-
what,
It's like,
that's
what
why
was
he
going
was
on.
put in there.
exactly. Well, I was
Yeah.
going to say, and now that we've left Prowl, we'll introduce yet another should-be leader candidate. I almost feel like even the next 3 issues, all the way up through the Wheelcheck one, is just like, and now we will review all the candidates who would make more sense to be in charge. And try and give a reason why they shouldn't be.
Now, that you're kind of not being fair because, in a sense, I'm glad that Bumblebee is in charge because if there was one of these guys in charge, the conflict would have been completely different. And then when we get to the end game of season 1, when a certain character comes back and drives everything back into the war again, no one would have the conflict would have been completely different, and they might have actually stopped him before he actually took over like he did.
But I think you could have done that with Ironhide. You could have done that with Mirage or Jazz, or you would have had to give Jazz a character. Which
Yeah,
I,
you would have had
you
to.
seems to
could have
be
done it with-
having trouble
you could
doing.
have done it with Mirage if Mirage in this universe is how I've always known him to be in G1. If he's like, oh guys, I don't want to fight, I just want to, be at peace.
Well, yeah. What if he was like a political animal and managed to get himself? I mean, like that might have made more sense. You could have, frankly, if they didn't want to get rid of him, you could have done this with Prime, just being self-doubting and not knowing what to do in a civilian.
No,
situation.
we did that in Costa. Please do not do it again.
No, they should. I'm just saying the way they've portrayed him, they could have. I not that I like that, but
Costa
there's
did
no-
it. He doesn't need to do it again.
yeah, I'm just,
Please, it was painful enough.
Well,
We don't want to have
hang
another
on.
Prime sitting in
They're
the
still
corner
doing
with
it.
a
I'm
dunce hat on.
I'm not giving. Still doing emo Prime. This whole I'm a Ryan Pax thing is still like watching your dad have a midlife crisis after your mom left him for a tennis instructor. It's dismal. And yeah, we don't have to watch Optimus sit in a cell every week asking Spike if he can paint it black, but he's still doing it. So until they fix Optimus Prime, I'm not going to give them a whole lot of credit for like, oh no, he would have been better here because
No, I seriously, I'm fine with that because of the conflict that it created. But then on top of that, because Bumblebee does continue to make mistakes, and I'm really glad that he does. He's not supposed to be perfect. In fact, I think I remember Barber saying that he's not actually going to make good decisions. He's going to make bad decisions. And he worked with the fact that he isn't a really good leader. He's a very young leader, and he doesn't know what he's doing. And, half the time, Starscream and Metalhawk, which we eventually find out that those two end up, between the 3 of them, they try to run things. And they're perpetually running circles around Bumblebee.
Yeah, but that's not the point, though. I'm not saying he's a good leader or a bad leader or better. That the other ones, I think all the other ones could have made either the same or different or similar mistakes. They would have made tons of mistakes. All of them would be lousy leaders, frankly. Frankly, let's face it, nobody would be a good Optimus Prime in this role.
True.
My point is not that he's a good or a bad leader. It's that he's not a plausible leader. For the reader to read the book, you don't understand why he's the leader at all. You could go through this thing and Photoshop it and turn him red and change his name to Cliffjumper everywhere, and no one would notice. Still wouldn't make any sense why Cliffjumper was in charge. You know, why is Private Bumblebee or why is Private Cliffjumper the general of the Autobot army? Equally makes as little sense.
Well, even to the character, he doesn't even know
Could
why.
have been Sea Spray.
True.
You know, Bumblebee is like the top-notch Sea Spray. But if you put Sea Spray in here, everyone would have known it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least until they have elections, this is what we're going to have.
So we've got coming up to and what I've just realized just by just looking at the art and not really reading the words as I'm thumbing through this as we're doing this review, is that this entire first issue is don't be a bully. It's an anti-bullying campaign issue because by the end of it,
Till the end,
Horrible gets his head whomped off.
Yep. One of the first huge mistakes in Bumblebee's repertoire. But the thing is that
I'm surprised he even got the cojones to even press the button.
Yeah, well, that's,
Well, you know, that's the thing too. I mean,
he's playing leader. He's playing leader.
That's not playing leader, though. It's only, you know, he's so incapable. I don't know. It strikes me that there has always been in the Transformers an element of the leader has been very physically strong. I mean,
that's why I say he's
certainly, yeah, figurehead or not, but I mean, there was like some capability of like, I can take care of myself that was part of that in their psychology. There has never been like, you know, it's not like the Autobots followed Perceptor around because he was the smartest, even though they're good guys, right? Or Prowl, or anyone like that. The biggest, strongest jerk in the room was still in charge. And there's a certain degree of like, if Optimus Prime had had to go talk to Horrible, he'd have sat on him.
Probably.
He wouldn't have had to kill him.
He wouldn't have had to.
And
but then you also have Metal Hawk.
He'd have ordered 3 guys to pin him to the ground, and they'd have done it.
Yeah.
You know.
But the thing is that
the good guys shouldn't have to kill people all the time to get their way.
He pushed that button because of 2 reasons. One, because he needs to show that he has some strength, which he doesn't. And 2, Metal Hawk is sitting there telling him, "Oh, you know, he's trying to have to prove himself that he is the leader, even to other people in the comic."
Mm-hmm.
It's like this peer pressure that won't ever go. And so you're right. It is kind of, in a sense, it's like high school. He's having to be the guy that makes the big decisions because no one believes he can do it. So like Horrible is like right there in front of him and he says, stop me. What is he going to do?
I just don't believe Bumblebee would have done that still. I still feel like this is still part of the falling down of the comic. Because there's nothing to do with Bumblebee.
See, I've gotten over it. I've gotten over it. After 2 years of reading Costa, I've gotten over the fact Bumblebee is the leader, and I'm all right.
I think you're just traumatized into it. I don't know. I feel like this is like Lady Reg Helsinki syndrome. Bumblebee Helsinki syndrome. You know, just like, okay, fine. I just have to.
For the story to work, it works as much.
You know, if it was Cliffjumper, I could believe it would have blown his head off.
Yeah, because Cliffjumper was that whole sniper guy, right? He has anger issues.
Like, Bumblebee at least would have had his crap together. Be like, okay, Optimus Prime, whatever he would have done, definitely would not have blown some dude's head off by remote from 20 feet away with a crowd watching. You know.
Well, but they had to use they had to set an example with using these ID chips.
Yeah, that or else it's just a bunch of them going around saying, "Hey, we
can do this. We're not going to, but we can.
We can hit you with this stick if you don't. Just keep on, threatening.
It's kind of like those old commercials. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. Mom, she's touching me.
Yeah.
I think there should be a panel in here somewhere of like, for completely different reasons, either like Prowl or Cliffjumper reaching over his shoulder and pressing the button. Like, what? You were gonna, right? Come on.
So for issue 2, cover A, we have Shockwave, Bombshell, Ratbat, and Soundwave. I really like this cover, except the one thing that bugs me about Ratbat's designs, and I don't know if there was ever a toy plan for this, I don't think there was, his shoulders have giant fucking screws in them.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's no toy like that. They're not. I don't think those don't look that much like screws to me. I mean, they have the line of.
Are you kidding me? I could put a flathead screwdriver.
No, dude. I will show you Robots in Disguise images where they draw the toy screws in, man, and they're there. They're screws, and you can tell.
Oh, I'm sure, but
rounded off. They look like exterior little things from a a moving thing with moving parts. They just look
In
like
the center with the yellow and the line, the black line drawn.
They're too big. They're decoration. I don't think they look that much like screws.
No, you're wrong.
They
Ender, you're wrong. I'm sorry, but this time you're wrong.
They're a circle with a line through them, but they only superficially resemble screws.
That's
I'll show you.
right. If the line wasn't there, I would say you're right.
Screws that are silver in one of these books, man. I'm telling you, when they draw
grommets, then, right?
they draw the screws.
And I love the whole. I don't know. I love the whole mystery of this.
I like
this first panel, and then I'm thinking, oh wait, is this a recap panel? Why are they recapping the last issue? But
they recap.
I get it.
Last time,
it's only one panel. I mean, showing the Womp explosion again is still cool.
You want your comic to be able to stand independently. I'd hate to think any comic. You're right. It kind of has to be able to be read. With sometimes when you get to the midst of the climax of some long running series, maybe that's not going to be possible. But I think they looked at this and went, if we add one page of recap, this whole thing will make a lot more sense. Because if you think about it, if you picked this book up and you picked it up, it's been a lot harder to, keep up with.
Yeah. Well, the one thing it did do is you didn't get this out of the other one because it was at somebody else's point of view, but it also kind of shows that Ratbat is trying to manipulate things from behind the scenes and put pressures on Bumblebee because, again, like I said, he's really not great at leading, and everybody knows it. And they are putting specific pressures on him to make him crack and make these choices, to put him in a political situation where the nails don't want him there, and they will physically uprise and pull him out. Because that's exactly why Optimus Prime left, is because they were uprising for that reason. And part of the conditions of him leaving was, hey, I will leave, but please give my Autobots a chance. And so that's the only reason why they're tolerating this. The fact that they haven't uprose at this point is the fact that rumor has gotten around that they even killed their own when they disagreed. So they're like, we're not quite sure what to take with the Autobots being in charge. Because as much as they're saying, hey, the war's over, we're your friends, you just, as far as we know, took out a whole big portion of your own that just decided they didn't want to stay. And at least under Optimus Prime's rule, he let us leave, and now you're not letting us leave because we're afraid that that's what's going to happen to us if we try to leave. So there's a few things that are moving into place here. That I really liked the fact that Ratbat was the guy kind of supervising this. He knew that Horrible and Needle Nose would screw around and get themselves killed like that, but he was counting on it.
Mm-hmm. I just want to make a structural point out for this trade that the first, I think, maybe not all the books, but I think there's 5 in here, right? I think the first 4. Mm-hmm. Well, I think they're maybe in the 5th one too. They're divided per person. They're all perspective shots. I just think we should mention it in terms of actually analyzing this a little bit.
Yeah, the first one was Bumblebee,
and the second one is Starscream. I think we should mention who we're actually looking at every time because it's important to the structure of the books and the structure of the trade.
Yeah,
and I like that. I think that's great. I think that's an amazing thing that you're taking. I mean, if I had gone back, if I could go back in time and collect these singly, I would have thought that's great. Okay, this week we're getting a story from Bumblebee's perspective. Next week it's Starscream. Week after that it's whoever.
You bring up picking them up individually over time. I got to say too, that's part of the issue I think that's come up with Robots in Disguise is that, and I think as we go through, we're going to see more and more. A lot of this is about explaining the whole and why the parts of the whole we're sticking with. And it really is. It spends like 5 issues just kind of partially establishing where it's at, but also excusing itself for its whole.
Yeah.
And for readers who are picking this up month to month, that can get a little excruciating. It's fine. It's not a big deal when you read it in a trade. And I noted this with All Hail Megatron. Everybody seemed to be hating All Hail Megatron when I started reading it in the middle. And I was like, what? Seems fine to me. But I didn't have to sit through the first 6 months.
True.
Where it was really slow. And, going for issue, you pick up an issue, you pay your money, you sit down, you put it down unsatisfied. It's annoying. And that's hard for a reader to deal with. So, and I think that's been part of...
And
When I say the Bumblebee thing, I think it's because that slowness I think has been really compounded by that.
Yeah.
So
And you do bring up a really good point, because when I was reading this month to month, we were waiting on pins and needles, waiting to who's the next character that we're going to see from. Because you know what everybody wanted to see it from, right? Everybody wanted to see it from Prowl's point of view. Because the first
well, and there's something that sucks about it when you do too.
The first big arc was the fact that it was Prowl's conflict with everything that was really carrying the story.
It's been retconned out of existence though too, so there's a conflict there. We'll get to that when we get to Prowl.
All right, cool.
We're in Starscream right now.
Starscream, yes. We're going to talk.
Speaking of Starscream, this page here where the title is "The World and Everything in It." I love this dialogue from Starscream, and Barber, he did an amazing job just throwing G1 fans a nod.
Good.
Ratbat's phase shifted his optical sensors to rose tinted.
I just wanted to say that, for one, I mean, having read much further in this keeps up. I would like to give distinction of he writes the single greatest Starscream ever.
Yeah.
He does the best job of writing Starscream that anyone has ever done, period. This book should have been Starscream and the Transformers. Actually, it's inspired. I really kind of think, Transformers is more of a universe than a superhero team. It's not like it's, just, the X-Men and they all hang out in one place. It's like there are characters, I think. I feel like, we're getting to a point where maybe Starscream should just have his own comic.
Oh, it's funny that you should say that. Because he does end up, in the end, getting his way.
Yeah. I mean, well, that one issue that in the most recent, was it 20?
Oh, yeah.
It really is an all Starscream issue. And the thing is, he carries it just fine. And I think he kind of could.
Could do.
I kind of feel like Prime and his little group of Star Jammers maybe should just have their own book. The Prime Jammers, Well, that's what they seem like,
Awesome.
But there's lots of characters I think could just carry it. And why not, instead of...
Starscream is one of them, right?
Well, and it creates a conflict, I think, we're talking about the pacing of monthly comics. It's annoying when you're trying to do what's essentially a crossover, but you have to write all 5 books in one book.
Mm.
So like one week we got to go have Bumblebee and the Transformers, and then the next week we got to have the setup for Dark Cybertron, and the month after that it's Starscream, the Invincible, and then after that you get to go back to your book maybe. You know what I mean? Like, because you have to set all those things up. And meanwhile, the fan base is sitting there going, "Get on with it!" Because all those books should have come out in the same month next to each other. As far as they're concerned, for reading purposes. So.
Yeah. Or at least those that are following it month.
Well, the universe has gotten to be a big place. And and I gotta say too, in terms of, I don't know how much of the money readership is just solid Transformers fans, but let's face it, the ones who pick it up now would pick up 10 books just as readily as they pick up 2. Well, some of them would pick up 7 and some of them would pick up 5, but for the most part, you could and a good deal of them would pick up all of them, including all 3 variant covers, regardless of what was in them.
So, there's that too. Yeah.
Which is the Dreamwave sales model.
The problem with that, and I agree, I would love to have more Transformers comics. The problem with that is
more. We already have 5.
Like I said, he just pointed it out. So there are some people in the fan base that would pick up everything. I would probably be one of those people. But the reason why I don't think that they do that is because I think they are business-wise trying to be realistic. How much can they actually handle before it actually starts affecting all of their titles? And so I think they're being really wise about how much they've been able to put out. I think the reason why they are out with all of the titles that they are is because that's as far as they feel that the outlets, that the consumers can actually consume without making it, make the whole deck of cards fall down. I'm not saying
I'm
the
not
way
saying
it
it
was,
should
but
be
yeah.
10 comics, but I bet it could
And that's
handle a
the-
little more.
Well, that's the thing. Ender, you always say, "Oh, get both. Read More Than Meets the Eye and read Robots in Disguise."
Yeah.
Well, not everyone's going to want to do that, and I love how IDW has Monstrosity, Beast Hunters, Rid, and More Than Meets the Eye. I think that's great because it's enough variety for everyone. Like, say someone is just interested in the Dinobots, they can read Beast Hunters. Say somebody wants to see Rodimus be a somewhat
Beast Hunters is
competent
more
leader.
of a miniseries.
What?
Beast Hunters is a miniseries, though. And
No, it's not. It's an
It's
ongoing.
an ongoing.
Is it? I thought it was only going to 8.
I think they're going to
that was a
rebrand,
misprint.
honestly. I think they're going to rebrand after 8.
Yeah, but it'll be rebrand to be something. I mean, it's just, well, I guess more to the point, it's a sales comic. I mean, it's more to go concurrently with a marketing thing. I bet. I just think it has a little more to. It has that Beast Hunters name on it for a reason.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have anything to do with what's in the comic.
Sometimes it doesn't.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know. Issue 4, there are
There are a lot of beasts in that.
Yeah, well, I wrote that in my review. I said there's some beasts and there's some hunting. There's no prime, and they're not the beasts you're thinking of, but it's the closest they've gotten. You know.
What is the deal?
There wasn't that much beast hunting and beast hunters, frankly.
What's the deal with Bumblebee having a cane like Old Man Cup?
I love the cane. It's a shock stick. I want to have one when I'm old.
I loved it too. I was surprised as all hell when he pulled
He's
out
a
the shock
transformer.
stick.
He's
Why
going
isn't
to
the
have a
shock stick
cane. Why
built into
not have a
his nose?
stinger to go with it? Come on, he is Bumblebee, right? When
And
do
the
we have a
cane-
stinger that goes with a Bumblebee?
You know, the cane and the limping that goes with it, again, inherited silliness.
Inherited silliness. I
Okay,
think.
well,
He got that. Who gave him that cane? Come on, Lady Rec, who gave him the cane?
excuse me for not
Costa.
reading the shittiest comics
Costa,
ever.
yeah, Costa gave him the cane.
Costa gave him the cane.
So,
And Wheeljack created it for him.
the thing is here, and Barber, to his credit, tries to turn the cane into something cool. But at
And
the
he
end of
does
the day,
for the most part.
the answer is he probably should have just gotten rid of it.
I like the fact that the next issue we get is Prowl using his own version of
Yeah,
the
well,
cane.
he says he wants to talk to Wheeljack about it, and he takes care of that, man.
Yeah,
And that's a
what I
nice
gotta
joke,
say.
and I'm glad it's there. Again, I'm not sure it's worth the distraction of why does the Transformer need a cane? Because it takes you out. It makes things slower. It makes you explain things that you don't need to explain.
Maybe it's an old war injury from the
And-
slave mines on Wait, shut up.
It's not.
Maybe it's an old. Shut up, Ender. Maybe it's an
Why would
old
he need
war.
a cane
Shut up!
robot.
The more you
Shut
say
up.
shut up, the more he
Shut
interrupts. It's great.
Yeah, I don't think.
Reminds me of the night of slave mines on Galganath 7.
You've seen Transformers the movie, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's an old cup joke.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
Starscream
that face cup.
Prowl.
on that shutting up topic, maybe you should leave the jokes to me too. I mean,
Fuck you.
Oh.
Jerk.
that's what it says on my card.
Oh, great. Ender is Prowl. Great.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, Ender is Prowl. He
Yeah,
is
gee, Andy likes Prowl. What a shocker, huh?
Oh, goodness.
Okay, so Prowl interrogating Starscream. This is interesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's one of the best things so far.
This is why Starscream becomes a fan favorite, is because for the first time, he really is he embraces his honesty. He's honest with the guy. He says, hey, I want to be in charge. And you know what? Rat-Bat is in my way. So I'm going to tell you the truth because I want you to get rid of him for me. But you'll do it because you want to get rid of him too. So we're going to...
I wanted this scene to end. I wanted Prowl and Starscream to walk out together and be like, we're taking over.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, for the first time in this comic, again, like I was saying, all this inequity of like, he shouldn't be in charge, this, that, the other thing. These are each other's opposite number.
Yep.
I mean, like 100%.
They're perfectly yoked.
Yeah, I mean, like if Prime and Megatron are gone, these two should either be trying to kill each other or be in charge.
But in a sense, they kind of do become the guys in charge. Again, coming back to this whole thing.
Well, yes and
Whoever
no.
is above them is the figurehead, and they are the guys in the background doing all the manipulation.
Yeah, but Starscream really wants to be in charge. I think Prowl would have been perfectly happy to take over Cybertron with Starscream running around with a crown on, being a jackass everywhere while
Yeah.
he ran everything. How's the planet running today, Prowl? Fine. Shut up. Okay, I'll be in my room.
I'll be on my room trying on
Partying.
another cane. Yeah.
Any partying you want to have? No. Okay. See you later, man. Keep up the good work.
I could totally see that too. I agree with you.
Take the crown, take the credit card, let me run the planet.
Exactly.
Deal.
Because what has Starscream ever done to lead? All he wants to do it is a name. He wants to be Bumblebee, except he probably would do it better.
I really, really, really want to be in charge. Okay, you're in charge. Yay! That's all he wants.
Put a crown on his head, put him on a throne, he'll be happy, and then somebody else can do everything for him.
I was saying that in my review of Robots in Disguise 20, when he is in charge, I'm like, what Starscream needs now is a book entitled "What to Dictate When You're Dictating," because he has no idea what to do.
Yeah.
Only other parents got that joke.
So, Starscream reveals that Ratbat is planning to assassinate Bumblebee. And Prowl reacts to that because you ain't going to take out my figurehead. Oh, heck no.
Yeah.
So then he's going to come back to this nice little element that was seeded in the last issue, which is the shadow that's in the background. Turns out that Prowl has his personal hit person. It's a hit girl. It's RC.
That's a kick-ass name, Lady Rack.
Oh.
Shut up, Ender.
RC is hit girl. There you go.
I read her Spotlight before I read this, and I was like, reading that, I was like all kinds of shocked of, what did they do to this character?
Yeah, I know. It was terrible, right?
I know.
Well, man, Simon Furman.
Even Simon has said he wishes that he hadn't wrote her that way. So
Yeah, well, I'm glad he got over that because, the whole thing, I'm pretty up in arms about the total lack of female Transformers in this comic, and it's because the canon that Furman set up didn't have them. And what he said something was like, well, I just need to have a reason for it. Anything I put in there, I really, this guy found a reason to have pretenders in the first few issues. I need to have a reason for there to be male and female Transformers. I was thinking like, yeah, you're not married, are you, dude?
Well, Furman actually kind of is.
Well, is he? I don't know.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's been married for years. In fact,
Well, I bet she explained to him why he shouldn't have written it that way.
Yeah.
Because
this is also probably the reason why he says he regrets writing it like that. But the thing is, this is something that Chris McFeely has said, and I tend to agree with him. I rather them use the elements rather than just ignore that they exist. So in this, they don't really get into the guts of it, but they make it work for RC, because at the point of this comic, everything that had come before that, she was she wasn't in a good place, and this comic gives her a purpose, and it gives her a chance to be a personality, and gives her a character, so that now what we see in what we're like issue 20, issue 19, or whatever issue was from her point of view, she actually is somebody that's interesting because of what she's done in the first year of issues in Robots in Disguise.
Yeah, no, I mean, Barber uses her much better than he did, but I think when he even, I suspect, even when he's discussing he regrets writing her that way, it's not so much about the character he gave
Simon,
her.
you mean, not
Simon, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. It's more about the origin he gave her.
Yeah.
I'm not, and then in terms of using her well, Barbara does a great job here. But in terms of the situation she creates, which isn't addressed here at all, so it's not really the issue at hand.
Well, what situation does she create?
She creates a situation where the Smurfs are the the Transformers are the intergalactic titanium Smurfs. She is Smurfette, built by Gargamel. All females are a horrible Frankensteinian aberration. It's a terrible, terrible message to put in a comic book.
Yeah.
I don't like RC's design. That's what I don't like. Like her the page of her when we first see her. She's just
Her helmet could use a little work, yeah.
Yeah.
Her helmet could use a little work. Her makeup could use a little work.
makeup.
Her entire
Her makeup
face.
could not exist.
You know what I mean, damn
I mean,
it.
like, if you need a reason for something to be in the comic book.
I
You
know.
I-
It's like, I can't come up with a reason for girls, but on the one I made, lipstick. Lipstick makes perfect sense.
I think that the problem that it creates, they just haven't addressed it yet. It's just something, and I hope that they will, because I've heard some really good pitches on how some fans would handle her using the situation that they've already been given and making it work. And it's just something that they haven't really addressed yet. And I hope that they do.
I'd take a brief retcon and an apology. I'd take a brief retcon and an apology at this point. Well, part of my deal at this point is just that it's been going on so long.
Yeah, they have ignored it for too long.
You've run out of time to do something clever.
Yeah.
Now you need to do something human.
Yeah.
You need to be decent people. You need to cowboy up, say you're sorry, and start doing the right thing. And if you can't find the perfect way to fit that into your continuity, well, if DC can pop out a new 50 whatever every 6 months, I bet everyone will get over it.
It's been 2 years, dude.
This is also the reason why you brought up a really good point. If they can't find a really good way to make it work, and that's probably why they've ignored it for right now, and until they can find a really good way to make it work, it's kind of untouchable. And
What if they never do? You know, which seems to be the trend. I think they need to suck it up and deal with it.
I think that with the writers that we have right now, there's so much that they need to do to put it in a right place that I think it will be addressed at some point. Because like you've pointed out already, and we have already agreed with you, that there's a lot that the writers are having to write and dig out from what was already established. I think that once they have that in a good place, and they have the confidence of the readers to continue, that they will eventually address it. I mean, it would make sense.
The nails would have been a perfectly good excuse.
True.
Frankly, I think if they just started including female characters next week and never said anything about it, it'd be like 6 people and Chris McFeely would complain.
Wow. And issue 2 ends on Starscream on stage.
Yep.
He's joining the Autobots.
Yep.
Well, no, he's joining the government as a Decepticon. He wants to be the Decepticon representative.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it should be. I'm just saying there's a difference there. He's certainly not saying he's an Autobot. Yeah. And his big non-factionary shtick is not for, we're not going to see that for a year.
Yeah.
So it's just an important distinction there. It's one of the, if not the best moment in this entire trade. It's pretty brilliant.
It's brilliant how he just pulls it off. I mean,
he didn't mean to do that. It wasn't a plan.
All he had to do was just be honest. That's all he had to do.
He just saw the moment, was like, you know what? I think I should stand up in front of all these people and tell them I think I should be in charge.
Yep.
And see what happens. And he just does it, man. He just sees his opportunity. He's like, you're right. I should be in charge, Bumblebee. And he's like, what? Yeah.
Yep.
It's brilliant. It's a wonderful moment.
We also get RC assassinating Rat Bat, so he's out of the picture. Yay!
Yeah, no more Rat Bat.
And Prowl gets a chance to take out his anger issues on Skywarp. So
yeah, that was nice. We got the throwback to the cane, which
yeah,
the attempt to justify its existence. I like the shtick with.
Can you really consider that? Can you really consider that a throwback since both incidences happen in the same issue?
Do they?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a shout out to it because his things open in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And he says in that scene, I need to go talk to Wheeljack. I think it's very clearly meant to be. He went and talked to Wheeljack.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty clear, just because of the exact similarity of the issue. If his things just electrocuted the guy, I wouldn't say that, but they're clearly meant to be the same things.
The other thing that I think this issue does that was brilliant is the fact that we realize very quickly that RC is a little psychopath. She's not just a nice little assassin specifically for Prowl. She doesn't necessarily follow what Prowl tells her to do.
Yeah, I remain unsure. I mean, even if after reading reading this a couple of times, and there are discussions about it later, and there's a couple of discussions about it, but I'm still not entirely certain whether even Prowl is sure if he asked her to kill Ratbat or not specifically. Like, I think he's totally okay with it. And
yeah, because it gets him out of the way.
Them that he didn't care if she killed him. But I think when she comes up and is like, "Hey, I cut that bastard up," he's like, "Well, did you try and arrest him?" And some people have said, like, well, maybe that's just him kind of sating his conscience or getting his story straight. And I think it's that too. But when he talks about it later, and in this scene, it does seem a little as if he sent someone with a tendency to kill people to arrest the guy, knowing that he might get killed.
Yeah.
But he, I don't think, is sure whether he, like, deliberately ordered Ratbat's assassination. I really, even in his head, I don't think he ever sat down and, like, I'm going to do something subtle so she kills Ratbat. Like, it was more like, oh, you really? He's dead? Like, oh, I was going to, like, cut his wings off and kick him around the office tonight, but okay. Guess that works too.
The whole idea that I don't think he misinterpreted. I think it was more like, Ratbat's going to be a problem. I will go take care of Skywarp. You take care of Ratbat. She goes and takes care of it, and then he finds out. Oh yeah, did you try to arrest him? Because I wanted, yeah. Because I hope you did try to arrest him, right?
Well, later when he
but
shows
she's
up there,
an assassin. She's not a police officer, right?
True. But that's the other thing is, what did you expect to happen, Prowl?
No,
You're
actually,
asking that question when she's the one that's hiding in the background.
It's straight that him. It doesn't fit that he's just getting the story straight, because that's not the story he uses.
True.
He says it's a suicide and doesn't acknowledge her existence.
Well, because if he did, then he wouldn't be able to use her anymore.
Yeah, so he's not getting his story. I think he is asking, like, you tried to arrest him, right? Like, and then when he restates it, he's like, no, really, just tell me you tried to arrest him, because now I killed him.
So what he's saying is that he's basically telling her that's your cover story.
No. It's the opposite of that. Lots of people have suggested it's the cover story, but it can't be the cover story because it's not the cover story. He has a cover story. In fact, he needs Starscream in the end to back him up on it, not her.
Yeah,
it's a big, and that's what we're getting to next.
Yeah, in issue 3,
Starscream sticks his nose where it doesn't belong and comes out on top.
Yes. So for issue 3, cover A, it's Wheeljack. I love this cover. I think this is a great cover.
Yay, Wheeljack. I'm a big Wheeljack fan.
Are you? It doesn't sound like you're that excited.
I'm always happy to see Wheeljack.
So yeah, like Ender said, issue 3 starts with Prowl basically saying, it wasn't murder. He was not murdered. Evidence suggests suicide.
Ratbat fell down an elevator shaft onto some bullets.
Wait, didn't she use some flamethrower sword?
She stabbed him. I was just making a ridiculous assertion.
So, if that's one thing I didn't really get about this issue. Prowl uses her to assassinate Ratbat. He then needs Starscream to back up his play on suicide, and then all of a sudden Dirge is the setup, is the fall guy for all of this?
Not quite. That's not good. No, that's not where that goes. What happens with Dirge is just that he survives this explosion, which I love how they introduce a barrel roll here as the 6th and expendable aerial bot. And then it's an almost Robertsian moment where like, hi, isn't this guy cool? Bam! Yeah, well now he's dead. But
Wow.
no, yeah, Dirge's whole problem here is just that he was standing next to the thing when it blew up, and it makes people suspicious. One of my favorite
Yeah.
lines in this is the, when seeing the explosion, Metal Hawk, talks to Prowl, who says it's a Decepticon, and he says, "Why assume it was a Decepticon?" He says, "Gee, Metal Hawk, every event of every day of the last 6 million years, mostly."
He's not wrong.
Yeah, it's like,
I don't.
well, that
think
is what Metal Hawk doesn't get about the Autobots.
Yeah.
Is every event of every day on the last 6 million years.
So I assume Metal Hawk is supposed to be Rid's version of Drift.
No.
I mean as far as his.
He's a real character.
Why assume it's this? Why assume it's that? Why not have a Zen personality?
No, he's not Zen. He's a political jackass.
Oh,
okay. Don't you think? I don't know. He's kind of a
he's
not
no,
a
you're
bad guy
right.
per se, but he's a self-centered, self-motivated, kind of maniac kind of guy, but just in a very subdued, non-violent kind of way. And in fact, a lot of his non-violence is only when it suits him. When it makes the Autobots and Decepticons look bad and make him look like he should be in charge, he's all for it. I think Turmoil shows up at some point, and he's like, shoot him now, shoot him twice.
I know, yeah.
Like, I don't like him. It's like, oh, well, you get this guy, huh? We have to all hang out with Starscream at, lunch meetings, but the guy you don't like.
Oh, man.
No, he's not that Zen. He's got.
I don't know.
He's got an
just
agenda.
Every time I read him trying to, why do you assume this? Why do you assume that? Every time I read Metal Hawk's dialogue, I constantly think back to Drift. I don't know why.
I don't know if I particularly see that. Really, I mean, what is annoying about his dialogue, and I think what has driven some people to dislike him in general as a character, is that his existence kind of depends on his ability to undermine the position of those who are in ostensible power.
Yeah.
The Autobots and even the Decepticons to some degree, because either one of them, even though they're minorities, theoretically could kick the crap out of the others. So he continuously elevates his position solely, really, by making their decisions look bad. So he's constantly standing there, every time they, go to the, change their oil. He's like, why take a leak at 3:00? Isn't that a terrible time to take a leak?
It's like this is the funny part, is the fact that we get that issue not too long from now where he's the guy that's having the struggles because he's the jerk that he's like, okay, don't kill people because it's bad. Then he's like, this guy needs to die. I was like, really? You're such a hypocrite.
Well,
he's self-righteous. That's why people don't like him.
Well, and it's easy, that's one of the things, people don't like people. Like, it is easy to stand and just point out every little thing somebody does wrong and make them look foolish. And he's constantly doing that to be. Yeah. I suggested to someone that's how much someone likes Metal Hawk is probably in a direct, inverse proportion to how much they identify with Bumblebee.
You're right.
if you identify with Bumblebee, everything that Metal Hawk says is totally grating and jerky and just made to,
or how much you're willing to tolerate people like that. Because to be honest, for a while there, I actually kind of did. After I learned a little bit more about Metal Hawk, I actually kind of got a soft spot for the guy, and I was sad when he died. But you're right. The first 5 issues, he does some really jerky things, and you just want him to just take a chill pill, dude. Really, take a chill pill.
Yeah. Well, I think he does evolve as a character, and I think especially right at the end, Megatron was trying to kill everyone. He was, he was getting, and most of the Decepticons were right there with him, happy as they could be to be killing everybody again. That he was finally getting, okay, yeah, maybe this is a specific problem, and actually in that moment, and then sometimes overall, he actually is in some ways the best candidate for a leader for Cybertron, as it were.
And that's why I was sad, because I wanted him to be the next leader, to be honest. I wanted them to have an election and elect him.
Mm-hmm. I feel like he had his character evolution, and he was standing there with Starscream and said, we we really need to do things differently, and I get it now. We can't just let people run wild, but we can't have this go on anymore, and I understand, and now I know what to do to, rule this planet well. And Starscream was like, that's great, you're right, you're totally right. We need to stop being jerks to each other. Right after I kill you. I'll get right on top of that, but first I have to blow your abdomen out.
Yeah, first you're standing in my way. You're standing in the best possible position, so I need you out of here. Thank you.
That's great. I'm going to do that as soon as you're dead. So, more Wheeljack. I got to say, this was the most episodic of these.
Yeah, it is. Because the entire issue jumps character to character to character.
Well, it's all about Wheeljack. It is all about Wheeljack.
Right, no, it is, but I'm saying,
an important moment, the Aerobot sleeve, but, it is sort of, this comic could be entitled, Transformers versus the Weather. Last issue was Starscream makes Bumblebee look like a dip switch, and this is, Wheeljack versus the Weather.
Yeah.
And, unsurprisingly, Wheeljack wins.
Yeah. But Starscream gets his little niche in too, because what he does, he gets a political handhold on where he wants to be, and he's able to twice. He endorses Prowl's version of what happened to Ratbat.
He has like a deal with the devil with Prowl in the first 10 seconds, which is like, that's a pretty big political bargaining chip he gets there. Like, I'm going to endorse your lie about murdering a Decepticon leader. And
wasn't that the proposal to begin with, though?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what he says here. He's, he literally is telling him, I'm going to back you up on this, even though, and you're going to let me in your, or I'm going to tell them you killed Ratbat. It's a huge,
Oh yeah.
Thing there, especially, he's got Bumblebee under a barrel just because Bumblebee set himself up and made himself look stupid in public.
Yeah, but Bumblebee can do that without anybody's help.
On Prowl. Yeah. Bumblebee just happened to make Bumblebee look stupid on national TV, which he continues to do later on. But this is the part where he goes and talks to the guy who's really in charge and is like, if you don't back off about something horribly criminal you've done. He doesn't really know he's done it, but without his endorsement of his crappy story, he's, at the very least, not as well off, if not totally screwed. So it's, that's as big a step as any he takes towards getting himself in charge.
I also think it's also Starscream's failing point, because later on when we find out that the Decepticons won't endorse him, it's like, yeah, well, because you could only stretch it for so far before that little thing that you think loyalty is there breaks.
Well, to participate in the government, there's an impasse with the Decepticons because, frankly, what they've always been against is having a government at all. Yeah. They don't really want to fix Cybertron. They want to kill everybody. And when Starscream, though, does want to be in charge. That's his ultimate goal, and he really doesn't care how he gets it. He's coming to the Decepticons saying, look, we can be in charge. We just have to not kill everybody, see? And the Decepticons are looking back and going like, no, but dude, we really do want to kill everybody.
Yeah, because the Decepticons enjoy killing people.
Well, that's all Megatron's fault now, isn't it?
Well, I think
here's the thing.
Megatron, who's that? He's not in this.
True. But he is responsible for the way that they are.
Later,
I get it.
Being a Decepticon, especially in the IDW verse, is basically a psychosis. It really is much more about. It's not really about any political aspiration or any absolute goal.
Oh,
it's
about at one point.
Anger, and I think even that is all just an excuse and a subterfuge. That theoretical political goal is only what they were angry about. They never really had a thing that was what we would do better. It's only we really, really, really hate this. And I think it's any government that's in charge. I really think that for the most part, the Decepticons, a lot of them anyway, maybe some of them are over it, 6 million years later. But the reason they're all uniformly violent, psychotic bastards is because at heart, it's not about being in charge or stopping some injustice or perceived or otherwise. It's really about lashing out. It's not about getting something. It's about taking for revenge for what you feel was taken away. They want vengeance on the universe for their problems.
Yes.
Well,
And until they
once
get
they
it,
get
they're
it-
not going to be happy. And if
once
they get it,
they
they're
get
not going to be happy. It's a
Once-
psychosis.
once-
Starscream doesn't have it. He just wants to be in charge and has no morals, which is why he's with the Decepticons. But they have no morals because they don't really want anything but to shoot at you.
So here's
God.
here's the
It's-
impasse then.
Go ahead.
Let's
Mhm.
say that they do that, and then what? Megatron gets to be in charge. Then he is going to set up a government one way or the other. They you know, even if it's just a government of one guy saying,
And he'll
"Do
oppress
what I
them and
say."
oppress them until they try and kill him, and he'll grind them into nothing until they shoot back. Which actually is exactly what happens in All Hail Megatron.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be in charge. When he wins, he immediately tries to get them to start shooting at him. He goes and like picks a fight with Devastator.
Yeah.
I think
Devastator.
that's not true in all of Transformers, but in IDW, Megatron's vision is mostly psychotic. He really, really just wants to shoot everybody.
When you said that they want nothing, the first thing I think of it is friggin' Buford from Phineas and Ferb in the Wizard of Oz episode. I want nothing.
Yeah. Megatron, they kill, what's his, Zeta Prime or whatever, and Megatron immediately starts shooting at Prime or at Optimus. Or
Orion Pax.
Whatever they're calling him in this version.
Whatever the hell his name is this week.
This week.
It's just like, great. What's the next biggest target? You. And the worst thing Prime could have done in a lot of ways was start calling himself Prime, because it was just, oh yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to shoot at.
Yep. When you put yourself as Prime, you just painted target on your chest or on your back of your head or wherever.
Yeah.
It just means
That's
that now
just Prime.
now you're it. Now I've got to kill you.
Yeah. It's like, we just killed the Senate and the Prime. Come on, man.
Get with the
I love
picture.
this-
Yeah.
I love this confrontation between Wheeljack and Starscream in here. Starscream says, I served my people, Wheeljack. I was good at it, and I could be again if I got my Seekers together. Wheeljack's rebuttal? What Seekers? Your squad is gone. Thrust and Ramjet are dead. Skywarp is in jail. Dirge is in the medical bay. Thundercracker is who knows where.
Yep.
Yeah.
What I love about this exchange is that when Starscream says he could get his Seekers together, they only really reference the Seekers we all know and sometimes love. They don't reference some made-up internet names. Oh, hey, this Viacon is Bob. This Viacon is Steve. You know, there is no Prime in here. And then we go back to, we stick with Starscream and Wheeljack for a bit, and then it goes back to Bumblebee.
Yep.
At this point,
Because
only
he
three
would be.
issues-
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, we're only 3 issues into this, and I find Bumblebee so boring.
Well, the only thing that really
Only
does end
one.
up, like I said, continuing at this point, 3 issues in, the only reason why I at this point was continuing to read, the biggest hook that I had was the Prowl situation.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
when we get the next issue, and that's about it's about him, it was put in the right place. And then on top of that, it's the Prowl, what's going on with Prowl, that really does carry the story for quite a few issues. And then, then it turns into, let's see how Metal Hawk and Starscream can interrupt Bumblebee's day, and that's even better.
Well, I just feel like what you're experiencing, Mike, is every time Bumblebee crosses the page, it's like, oh, this again?
That's exactly
it's a drag.
exactly the feeling. Honestly, when I sat down to read this about a month ago, because I read it, we're releasing this in September, so I read this in August when we recorded it. But when I sat down and read this, and by the time I got to the page before RC is sitting looking at the explosion, the page where Starscream is ruining Bumblebee's day, I was like, okay, I gotta get up and get something to drink, or I gotta go do something else and come back to this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like me and watching Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is such a long, slow, sad draw on a cigarette
Yeah.
that I just can't stick with it after watching 3 seasons of that show.
Yeah.
This is the same thing. I don't dislike Bumblebee. I mean, I thought it was damn good that he had, like I said earlier, he had the cojones to press that button. Because it's not something you ever would think the Bumblebee character would do. But just like every other shot, it's like, there was one shot where he was telling somebody to shut up. Or not now, or we'll deal with it later. He's one of those leaders, we'll deal with it later.
Yeah.
Kind of like Obama.
I can't deal with it now. We'll deal with it later.
Well, I think, this is here he is again. We see him here again. You're saying you feel like this burden. It's like, imagine a comic book, and at a point in the comic book, to turn the next page, I'll turn him back in the mini fridge, the Bumblebee mini fridge that that he has to carry around. It's sitting in one corner of the room, and when you get to that page, you have to walk over and pick up the mini fridge and carry it over to the other side of the room. It's not that heavy, but it's heavy. It's a little awkward.
To minimize.
It's a pain in the ass. You got to get it to the other side of the room, and you look at that page, and every time you do that, you think about, well, maybe I'll just do that later, right? And then when you get to the comic book shop the next week, you look at it and think, am I going to have to carry that fridge across the room like 3 times this issue? Maybe I'll just skip that one because I really don't want to carry that fridge around anymore. And I think that's what a lot of people were experiencing with RID, because it's a good story and has a lot of good characters and is written really well. But it does have this drag, a drag in it. And I think Bumblebee is only part of that, but he's definitely the worst part. And I'm not even sure we would have gotten rid of him yet. In terms of this trade, I don't see how Costa could have gotten rid of him in 5 issues. I'm only bringing it up because we're in issue 20 and he's still not gone. But I'm
You're talking John, right?
John,
not Costa. You said Costa.
Okay. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Well, it has the Costa drag.
Yeah, the Costa drag. John is still.
It's Costa's drag I'm talking about. Now it's Robert's burden.
You mean Barber?
Barber's burden.
God.
Between Rat Trap and wow.
Good thing there aren't 10 books.
You're having a rough day, aren't you, Ender?
This is what really carries Rid, is the fact that they are covered in conflict. That's what carries it. Because just as soon as one conflict feels like, I really don't want to read that again, they bring in another conflict. And then another conflict on top of that. So it's like, okay, maybe this conflict right here isn't carrying it, but we have so many conflicts that we are juggling here. What carries the story is the fact that it's all conflict.
And see, that's what's so great about it, because it is Rodimus and a ragtag bunch of Autobots went off in search of a myth. Mm-hmm. And there's only so many people, at least as far as I can tell from reading, first 19 issues of More Than Meets the Eye, because I've yet to read 20 as of this recording. But, it's one of those things where they left. Mm-hmm. That leaves everybody else. And instead of the message of, I am Optimus Prime, we are here on Earth, come see us, it's now, I'm Bumblebee, we're here on Cybertron, come home. And it's everybody. That's why there's so much conflict in Rid. You have so many different characters to choose from of who's going to have the next conflict, whether it be Prowl, whether it be Metalhawk, whether it be Starscream, whether it be Ironhide and the Dinobots, which will be next week's issue. But yeah, no, I really like how this one actually ends with Bumblebee and Starscream. I thought that was great.
Yeah, no, that conversation made sense. And there's a lot of Prowl and Starscream keep everything afloat, but this is Starscream, really owns this situation and takes out and gets himself, where he needs to be here.
Yeah.
And there's some stories set up for future stuff in here too, as well.
Well, could any of the other characters be that character though? I mean, because to an extent, this is the way I've always looked at Bumblebee: is he's that guy that's kind of on the positive side. He's optimistic, so he's not that cynical type that's not going to trust you. He is in his nature very trusting. So putting him as leader gives him that element because it's already naturally there for him to be able to say, you know what, I regret this, but
Yeah.
I'm going to trust what Starscream just did because he did do the right thing.
Yeah, but I think you could have just as easily done. Like I said, again, I don't know how they'd gotten rid of him quick enough to get him out of here.
No, they
But,
wouldn't have. They just, yeah.
But Ironhide could easily have been this guy. Not exactly the same way.
Right.
But,
See, now I see
or Mirage,
Ironhide.
or
Bless him.
Jazz.
I
And
see
all the
Ironhide bless
differences-
as a blunt object.
You know,
Yeah, Ironhide is.
That's because you didn't finish reading the last issue before we got started. Because he
What
totally.
last issue? I've read everything.
I know you've read it, but I just reread it like right before we started, and I was thinking this too, that maybe Ironhide was a little too hippied out the way they've done him to be effectively leader or be like Bumblebee is, but he could, in fact, frankly, at the end of this book, could have taken over.
He could have, but at
But
some
if you
point,
read his bit at the end, he says the right stuff. He says the kind of stuff that the intelligent leadership, actual compromising things that Bumblebee badly does, and he's plausible with it. People listen to him because he's Ironhide.
that wasn't really established until you got into this because
I'm just saying, with
he
the
had
end,
that whole vision thing, which was good.
Sure, the vision. Well, I think the vision thing only is what neuters him from being leader now. And I'm not
True, but it also softened him, I think, in a sense where you're like, oh, he actually does sit and think about things because, you wouldn't think that he's the contemplating type, but he kind of does need a little bit of that to be a leader because you have to have moments where you are thinking about things.
Last thing, the Ironhide's issue in the fifth issue of this book really makes a great case for him being that guy.
But then he's not politically in a position
plausible
to be that guy, though.
Yeah, but he's still much more plausible. It's hard to even look at that and think, why would Bumblebee continue to be leader when this guy was standing next to him? There's too many people standing next to Bumblebee who more plausibly make a leader. I think we all know there are people who are like, alphas in situations and people who aren't.
Yeah.
When you stand in a room, one of them's going to be in charge and the other is not. And Bumblebee is constantly standing in a room with like 6 alpha transformers, half of which are on his side.
And the other half
he's in charge, and it's not plausible to us as people because we know that would never happen. That person would demur.
Well, now that we've actually gotten through the first 9 or 12, whatever issues, 13, 14, 15, I could see Ironhide being that leader.
I can see him by 5. By 5, he makes it very clear he'd be much better than Bumblebee. And frankly, even for the story, he could have achieved all the same things. The difference is it would have been plausible. And that wouldn't be a drag on the book. I mean, some of what I'm saying
put up with Starscream and Metalhawk doing their thing. He would have just knocked Starscream out.
No. He's the one who tells, Bumblebee to take all the implant chips out.
True. But then at the same time, you also, when Starscream and Metalhawk are standing around, manipulating around Bumblebee, playing their little games, getting him all torn up and all twirled around in that, Ironhide would have just said, you know what, cut the crap and get the hell out of here.
Bumblebee says that too. The difference is that it's totally out of character. That's kind of exactly what I'm saying. He would have been much better.
The way that I am now seeing Ironhide, Starscream, and Metalhawk, Starscream and Metalhawk they're not their characters specifically are interchangeable, but the way I'm now seeing them, Starscream is either Larry or Curly, and Metalhawk is either Larry or Curly, and Ironhide is Mo. Spread out!
This is going to be an ongoing discussion, people. So if you're getting tired of me and Andrew hashing it out about Bumblebee,
yeah, it'll go away when Bumblebee does.
We'll just continue. It's just 2 different positions. It's just how it is, right?
We will continue after this. the only thing missing from Robots in Disguise number 3, cover B, is a crown on Starscream's head.
Yep.
Come on, Casey, you could have put a crown on there.
The crown's coming up. They were saving the
There will
crown.
be plenty of time for crown.
I think
I
what
know,
you'll really be
but-
looking at is on the Robots in Disguise cover 4. We should have paid more attention to those hypnosis lines
Yep.
in the background. No, this is the thing.
Oh, no,
I'll mention. This is what gets me about this upcoming one is where we're getting our Prowl issue, but we're also saying goodbye to him
Yeah.
for like 15 issues. So I have a little retconning is like I really feel like the problem with well, I'll talk about it later, I guess.
Yeah.
So, Ender, is this cover a lie as well? Because we've seen Bombshell in a couple of other covers. We've seen him in the book, I think, maybe once. But, like, does Bombshell actually... I don't remember if this is more of a Swindle issue than it is Bombshell.
No, it's plenty of Bombshell, but it's not...
Okay.
It's, no, Bombshell doesn't. There's lots of lies in this issue, but which are perpetrated... There's too many, frankly, in a lot of ways. They really kind of overdid it, I think, with that.
Overdid
I
what, the
like
lies?
that story. Yeah, like... It's not Prowl anymore. He didn't kill Bombshell. He didn't kill the constructed god.
Yeah, but you don't know that until...
I know you don't. I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's a lot of retcons, and
It
it
was
should be
planned
sticky.
from the beginning, though.
I
to be
know,
honest.
but even though we're visually seeing all their heads explode for us, the audience, it's a bit of a cheat to do all of those things completely. Like, remember this old Batman serial, where like from like the 40s. Where, at the end of one, he's running up this fire escape, right? And they cut to a dummy sitting on the fire escape, and they drop a big flaming fire escape on the dummy. I mean, it hits him. And when you come back to the serial the next week, they show the same shot, except Batman jumps off, and then the thing falls. And it was like, your cliffhanger is misleading, when you actually show it hit him. And
I
reason
thought
why
this was
it didn't.
brilliant. I thought
But
it was
they
brilliant.
show their heads explode, but they didn't. It's like, but we're not going to explain why that was.
The reason why I asked Ender if this cover was a lie with Bombshell on it is because Transformers Prime Beast Hunters number 4 is a lie on the cover because there are no Insecticons in that issue whatsoever.
Prime, everything on the cover was a lie. Except once, I think, when they just showed the Dinobots. I think that was okay. Otherwise,
That was
pretty unilateral.
issue 1,
lie.
yeah. So, yay, Swindle. I love Swindle.
Swindle should
Doesn't
get
matter.
his own mini.
Oh, God, Durs. How did he even survive that explosion?
Very carefully.
It's like, hi, my
You
name's
had-
Dirge, and I have a life
with,
of
with
woe.
Wheeljack,
What a
right?
shock.
Wheeljack issue with against the weather.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I think he just was really, really lucky.
Yeah, he was just nearby. If you read the description of what the extremely localized little bursts of energy. So, like, literally at the edge of that pool of light, there was not that much destruction around it.
Yeah. And it just got bigger after that. So the fact that it was small enough that it hit one guy and killed him, but, it was more people that got hurt, but, there were 2 Autobots that died. Yeah, so it was much smaller. It gets bigger from that point on. It was just the first, cough.
Yeah.
Then Dirge sees something that he shouldn't in this issue, and it just follows him around for the next while of issue.
The first of many. He sees a bunch of things he shouldn't in a row, and then the last of them. Because really, was it page 2 here? He sees something he shouldn't.
Yep.
It's going to be a habit.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the little wallflower assassin joins up again.
Yep.
And this is where we get...
Hey, wait, this is a political book, and you're skipping Starscream's big political move in the first 10 seconds.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Again, making
Coalition.
Bumblebee look stupid on TV.
Yep. He one-ups
just
everybody.
Yeah.
He takes the stage, and he takes the limelight away from Metalhawk, who's been expertly making himself look so good. Now he's got to put up with Starscream that makes him look a little less so good, because he's so charismatic that he's got to put up with that. And the big thing that's working not for Metalhawk is the fact that he's a jerk. And Starscream doesn't come off as a jerk. He's just dripping with charisma. So, yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that he's not sitting in the background going, who invited him here? You're doing it wrong.
It's a great shot of what we've been talking about. Like, where is the not alpha dog in this shot?
Yeah.
But what Starscream does is, just stands there, and again, because he can just totally overshadow Bumblebee, says, and of course we'll be having elections in 5 minutes, right?
Yep.
And removes all agency from Bumblebee as leader.
So the only reason why they're having an election is because Starscream got on stage and said, "Hey, guess what? We're gonna have elections. Vote for me."
I think if Prowl were on stage, it would have been more like, "We'll have elections when I say so, jackhole. Now get back in your seat."
But that's the thing. He
But see,
wasn't there.
Ironhide,
He's
for
taking
purposes
care of
of the story-
Skywarp.
Yeah. For purposes of the story, Ironhide would have been just as befuddled.
Yeah.
Elections are good. I like elections. It's an election again?
And Ender is
probably
right. This is so like high school. This entire trade is just like high school. Oh, let's have prom. Who's going to be prom king and queen? Oh, I don't know.
The guy with the crown.
Yeah. Too bad Casey didn't draw it on him.
If this is high school, look at this shot.
Right.
We have Starscream and Bumblebee and Metalhawk. Which one of them is going to be class president?
Yeah,
Starscream.
really.
One
of these things just doesn't belong here.
And which one of them is like the kid from the special needs class who's up there to be polite?
Oh, come on. You're being really mean.
Yeah.
As a
Bumblebee
kid from
isn't that
special
bad.
needs
He's just
class,
the nerd.
No, I'm being really Ender.
You know what?
It's a subtle distinction. Ender's
Bumblebee
loud.
is the when you hear the phrase of the girl next door, Bumblebee is the boy next door. He's just too nice.
Not saying much about Bumblebee at all.
In culture, isn't there a distinct difference between the desirability of the girl next door versus the boy next door?
Okay, sorry.
That's not a compliment.
It would be a good thing for the girl, right? But not the boy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well.
I got a question. What is Andrew Griffith? What is Andrew Griffith smoking? Seriously.
With what?
Because RC's faceplate helmet Leia ears thing changes every panel she's in. There was a panel in the last issue where I thought part of her faceplate was going to turn into the Optimus Primal faceplate from Beast Wars Season 1. And now it's more set back along her cheeks than almost basically running over her lips.
I think that might be him just making it work a little bit better.
I'm not complaining about it. It just...
Casey Collar does it in the way that Andrew Griffith does it. It's the same image. I didn't see it. I didn't even see it, but looking at them both, it's a little difference, but I think it's more just a difference in artist.
Or it could be a difference in angles too, because the other shot that I saw in issue 3, it was more of a straight-on headshot, like you're looking right at the camera, and it might be more pronounced. I'm not complaining about the art. I'm just wondering why it's consistently changing with her design.
Frankly, we've had several different artists so far in this trade, and I think the consistency, considering that they're different artists, has been remarkable.
Well,
it has.
For the first, for the first volume,
it takes people out, and I think these look very much alike, even though the artists are shifting, which is really cool. I think they're doing a great job of.
The first 5 issues, at least with this volume, it's Andrew Griffith is the artist, and the different covers are done by Casey.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, and Josh Perez is doing all of the colors. It was really solid for the first 5 issues.
I was thinking because the way they write these on here, I was thinking we're switching.
The covers
inside.
No, the covers switch. The actual books do not.
Okay.
It might just be like you said, different angle, and he might have just been evolving the design to make it work a little bit better for what he was trying to do.
This is additional art by Casey Collar in the front.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think Griffith is usually, I've commented on how consistently he draws everything. So,
Yes,
I really love that. I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm enjoying it. I'm just wondering, like I've seen RC at several different angles throughout this trade, and just her whole head. It seems like
Well,
it changes no matter what angle she's at or what light or shadow she's in. That's really, I mean, it doesn't take away from my enjoyment of seeing a psychopathic RC, but it just, it's weird to me.
I think I think her helmet design wasn't working quite as well as one would hope. I think that's why. I think, like you said, those shadows and such. I think those we're making it change a lot. They're made and contract, and I think maybe he's just tightening it up a bit here.
Yeah.
Just tightening up the design a little, and I think it looks better than it did before. That's one of those things. I never notice improvements. You know what I mean? Like when you fix something suddenly and it's not the way it was before. If it's better, I'm happy and I go on with my day. You know, you never have to explain to me why something sucks less.
Agreed.
It's like, it's better? Good. Let's go.
Basically, RC starts playing the conscience for Prowl because he just keeps on taking it to the next notch, which in fact I think is his biggest failing, because not failing in the story, I'm just saying failing as an individual, because the conflicts are wearing on him because he's out of his element in the sense that now he has to trust a whole lot of Autobots or Decepticons, which so far they've set it up as he's kind of been the guy that has to look over his shoulder at the Decepticons, make sure that they're doing what they should be doing right.
I'm not sure Prowl is trying to learn how to trust the Decepticons so much as
he doesn't
figure out a way to kill all of them without anyone noticing.
Figure out a way to get rid of them so that he doesn't have to worry about them all the time, because they are essentially doing things wrong, and he does not want to have to be working with them.
Well, I think Prowl is just he's a worrier, as he is apt to be.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think RC is just kind of telling him, like, you don't care that I killed those people. If you cared that I killed those people, I wouldn't like you so much. You know? It's like, I like you because you kill people without asking questions about it.
Yeah. So she can do her thing.
Be quiet. I'm trying to ask the questions. It says I have to ask to be a good person. It says it right here in the manual.
Yes, that is so right.
But because of that, he sets himself in a situation where he kind of puts himself vulnerable, and that's what happens in this issue. Makes him vulnerable, which then gets hidden as if it's a strength, that he's turning this into, now I'm just going to cross sides, right?
I think it's interesting that we see this later on with the Constructicons, how, as much as we think of Prowl as being too uncharismatic to be leader, the most capable people seem to really flock to him for his, absolutism. Yep. The things that make him untenable to most people. RC and the Constructicons, who are, very goal-focused people, are all about Prowl.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that rocks. Let's just run him over with a bulldozer. You're right. It's like, I didn't mean it that way. Mostly.
His name is Skydive.
Yeah, start getting the name jokes. All the good names are taken.
Yeah. Oh, James, we love you.
Yeah.
John.
James.
No.
James is the one that coined that phrase. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Dirge, like we said, he sees something he's not supposed to. Well, he sees a murder and he's the only witness, so that brings, of course, Prowl to his doorstep to find out what the heck is going on. Yep. And we get the whole eye change thing.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I was right about the eye color. Because back in the day, I said, look.
Was that it? Yeah.
Yeah. And Chris McFeely says, oh, that's a mistake. I was like, no, you can't say that about Josh Perez. He does not make mistakes.
Wait, which eye color? I'm sorry,
The red.
The red. Dirt.
Okay. So what did it used to be?
It was yellow, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It is red in the first few pages.
It is red, but it's either
Later
red or
on,
yellow.
It's Let's see, where is it?
Go back 2 pages.
It's a mistake.
No,
It's
not.
Okay.
supposed to be red. And in these shots back here, where he's saying I didn't see anything, it should be yellow. Which I guess sunstorms should be yellow too, according to the logic of the page that shows when it's turned off. Because in that one, they go from yellow to red.
Yellow when they're under control.
And frankly, in terms of the
credit.
lie,
Oh, you're talking about the actual...
somebody else's eye color doesn't change.
But wait a minute. There is change in the eye color. There's a yellow circle inside the eye when they're being controlled.
No, because if you go to the one where he goes from being controlled to going back to normal, they're yellow. Yellow. If anything, I'd say that maybe that was like they were yellow for a moment. I'd say, you know what, that's probably what it is. It's not that your eye color changes when that happens. Maybe his eyes are just supposed to be flashing as the cerebro shell explodes. They only are flashing for that moment. They're not saying that they have been yellow because he was being controlled. They're saying during that moment where it was being disconnected and his systems were rebooting or being flooded with information, his eyes flashed. So really that's just supposed to be a flash of color, a flash of yellow in his always red eyes. They are supposed to be red everywhere else. They only flash yellow when it gets turned off. Because otherwise, Prowl's eyes should be yellow for the rest of this book.
Yeah, that's true.
No, not till the very end.
No, he's supposed to get it right before he shoots Bombshell.
I like how they make Bombshell a mini-con versus just having him transform and be a giant Insecticon shooting Cerebro shells everywhere.
No, the Cerebro shell just looks like him.
No, what I was meaning by the eye color is that he's saying I didn't see anything because he doesn't want to say, for one, because he does remember what he saw. He doesn't want to say what he saw because he knows he's going to be screwed if he does.
No, he's saying I didn't see anything because he has a Cerebro shell in and he's being mind controlled to say. No, he's not. He's not forgetting. He's just saying didn't see anything over and over again because that's the only command Bombshell gave him because he didn't want him to say what he saw.
But the next page, he has yellow eyes and they aren't flashing. They're just staying that way.
Where does he have yellow eyes that they're not flashing?
Next page, right where he's got him with a chain. He's got it. Yellow eyes there, and then he goes to the next panel. He still has yellow eyes.
The flashing's a mistake, or it's
not a mistake. Don't say that about my friends.
One of those is a mistake.
It's not a mistake.
Okay.
It's a mistake. He's got red eyes here. Nothing happens to him in between, and then he has yellow eyes there.
Do I need to bring Josh Perez on to explain why he did that?
Sure, why not?
If he has a good reason, I'd be happy to hear it, but I'd still tell him it doesn't make any visual sense and it looks more like a mistake. There's another one with yellow eyes. No, it does go yellow at a point, but it's not yellow back here. And neither is
because he's already been given the command, so it's just...
Then why are his eyes yellow twice later on when he's not being given the command?
He's supposed to stand there because that's all that he was told to do is just stand there.
Look, either he should have yellow eyes already or he shouldn't. There's no middle section there. One of those is a mistake.
Okay, let's talk about Blur.
Okay, Blur.
They happen. It's okay. It's just like a character's eyes in a comic book. I would never have noticed it if you...
Dude, you're going to make her head explode. Stop it.
I wouldn't have even noticed the mistake. It's such a little mistake.
I like Blur's alt mode in this. I don't necessarily like his robot mode that much.
He looks like he has wings on the side of his head.
Yeah, I don't like that. Blur doesn't fly.
He just reminds me of like Hermes or something.
I know.
The sad part about it is that he is actually really good at doing his job, but because of what happens in this issue, he ends up leaving the security group that he was working for and saying, you know what, screw y'all, I'm going home. And he opens his own bar. But
His alt mode. It's funny. I think his design here. It's kind of an amalgam of
everything.
Well, they want him to have a Cybertronian alt mode, which I think is cool. And this is because this isn't a pack-in comic, but he still bears some resemblance to, I think, what was a contemporary Blur toy, which, as I recall, was made out of a drift toy. So those big wings on the side of his head are sort of an adaptation of the things on Drift's head.
Yeah.
And that's why I think he looks like that. They kind of amalgamated that toy and gave him a more cyber and his G1 toy and gave him a Cybertronian design. I see where it comes from. It's too, that's what happens.
Once I saw more panels of him, once I saw more panels of Blur, I got used to his robot mode. But that first panel that we see him transform, I like his alt. I mean, his alt mode looks really, his alt mode here on the panel where he says, well, he'll have to outrun me. On that panel, when he transforms, you know what it looks like? A very, very skinny 2011 Thunder Tank that can spit.
You know what it is? It is. I know what it is. It's an amalgamation of his G1 appearance and his animated appearance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
I was just going to say the wings even make it look like he's got a hawk on his face, too. It's like he's Hawkman.
Yeah, I think those little winglets, again, I think those were like something that popped up on the toy, so they put them even on the vehicle mode to make it sense of it.
Yeah.
Where they came out. This thing, it's interesting how many things it's actually a part of.
Yeah, it really, really is.
I really wouldn't mind a Prowl toy that turned into what he turns into in here.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah,
I mean, Blur and Prowl.
You don't see his alt mode much in this book,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yep. So they find out that Prowl sees that Bombshell is up to his, no good again. So he goes after him, and actually, even Bombshell's eyes change color. Anyhow, Blur is going.
You really want to open that can of worms again? Come on now.
I think what he's trying to do is just make it look like somebody else is controlling him, which
actually, I wonder. Now, this is the only thing I'd give it. That could be the subtle hint that he is taking control of somebody else.
That could be true.
I don't know if that doesn't make any sense. Actually, there's a couple of parts of that don't quite make sense with the narrative as it stands.
Okay, I can put this to rest. This is not a mistake. It is Bombshell with the Cerebro shell. There's a page after the whole Blur, thing, and then the RC thing. 2 pages after the Blur transformation. You see Dirge at the bottom of the page with a Cerebro shell attached to his neck, electrocuting him. His eyes are yellow, and then the Cerebro shell backs off, and his eyes are red. So
why aren't they red before then? That's why I see either the one or the other is a mistake.
Okay.
If his eyes were really, I think the mistake isn't back there, and it's not on the other pages. I think there's like 6 pages he has it right, and there's 1 page he has it incorrect.
I mean, just
and it's hard to tell with the other one because he also,
just bring Josh on so he can explain this.
I don't think. Why would it change? Didn't they? Especially because they go to such pains to have duplicate panels to show the change later.
Yeah.
If it was going back and forth this whole time, why would you need a drama shot of it going back and forth?
I don't know if Josh is on right now. Do you want me to go find him?
I don't
know. No.
Are you serious? How serious are you?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm willing to argue the point, but I don't really want to start calling colorists up just so I can give them crap about changing the eye color between 2 pages. What am I, Chris McFeely?
And see, I didn't even really realize, because I was asking earlier, what is Ender talking about the color change earlier back on the earlier page, and I said there were just...
not bring this up.
No.
This is about as bad as the whole Bumblebee shouldn't be in charge, Bumblebee is in charge discussion that we're going to continue to have. So we'll just move on.
Originally, when I brought it up about the eye color change, or somebody brought it up. I don't know. It was one of us. There's only 3 of us here, so it had to be one of us. But I thought you were talking about the fact that there are yellow pupils in his red eyes.
No.
That's what I thought you meant. And then I finally saw, oh wait, you're right. His eyes do go all the way yellow.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the mind control. That's really all it is.
The Matrix has him.
But either,
The Matrix has him.
Okay.
it just, yeah.
So on their way to find Bombshell, Prowl does bring his nice little assassin, and they end up having a conflict and assassinating a few people. And I love the fact that Prowl's like, you don't have to kill him. He's like, oh, is he a friend of yours? No? Well then, she just offs somebody right there, just casually, like it doesn't matter. Great.
He doesn't really care, though.
He really doesn't care. Yeah. He just needs to show
he cares
everybody that he does.
just enough to say, hey, don't do that. Jeez.
I have to hide the bodies, and I really don't like having to hide bodies.
It's fun for you, but somebody has to clean up afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. But in the meantime, Prowl did send Blur off to find other people, which ends up being that he finds the Constructicons that end up, beating the crap out of him, and they have to go save him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, he sends RC, and then he chases after Bombshell, and then this is the problem here. It's not the giant problem. I mean, this is supposed to be like, this is Prowl's issue, and I think even I read the things in the back, and they were they talk about how Robert says like, oh well, you get more insight into Prowl next issue because it's like Prowl's issue, right? Except it doesn't really matter. You're not really going to get any insight into Prowl's actions because as of this page where he's shooting Bombshell, we're not going to actually see Prowl again until like what, issue 16?
Yep.
Something. He's technically gone from the series now, which is kind of disappointing because I was, I'd say my big hook in here was Prowl and and Starscream, but to find out that like I've been reading the Bombshell and Starscream book for 6 months, it's retroactively disappointing. And and they do one thing they do right, and they do nicely, and is though maybe the panel before would have been nice, is his last internal monologue blurb is in that point. He doesn't think anything else for the rest of the issue. If he had continued to think things, I would have been really annoyed. Actually, there's also, I'd like to, where is it in here? I'd point out when he first, in his monologue, because there's a panel in here that's like, possibly my favorite of the whole series in some ways, because I'm bitter. But, he gets, there's a panel earlier on when they're not at the blast site. No, that's the other one. They're at the garbage dump looking at the body. And Prowl thinks, back on Earth, I thought humans changed me, and I thought I was better because of it. Then I met Spike Witwicky. And I love that panel. And Amy, can you guess why I love that panel?
Yeah.
Because it completely negates Spotlight Prowl.
Exactly.
Wipes it clean out of Prowl's character.
Never needed to be.
One of the worst issues ever.
So this is where Ender consistently brings up the point that I don't need you to tell me why he stopped sucking.
Right.
Just wanted to stop sucking.
Right. Well, that's exactly what happens here. In that one panel, in that one little, top of the page there, Barber manages to do what I wanted that Costa did the opposite of and failed, in that issue and failed to do for, 20, 30 more. It's just, he makes Prowl stop sucking.
Yep.
Frankly,
in one issue.
He made Prowl stop sucking the minute he started writing this series. He didn't bother to explain it until now.
Yeah.
But I never questioned it either, because when things stop sucking, it's just okay.
Well, the one thing I did like is the fact that we have a little bit of consequence too, because I'm all about don't ignore it, just have a consequence, and the consequence is he just doesn't trust anybody because of everything that went in there. But that's already been Prowl. If you go back and read shadow play when James is writing him, or other places where he's writing him. That's the way he always has been. It's just like you said, this is the point where John says this is why Prowl doesn't suck anymore, is because now he's where he's supposed to be again. And he
knows he only needs to make like 2 panels of excuse for it.
Well,
it doesn't
he
need
made it
anything
make
else
sense.
because it's not. Yeah,
He made it make sense for the fact that he's like, I believe you. Yeah, I believe you. And then he's, he shoots him in the face. Well, supposedly. Yeah. And the whole idea is that when he feels doubt creeping in, he thinks about Spike Wiki and the lesson that he learned there, which is don't trust anyone.
Which is don't listen to anything I said in Spotlight Prowl. Yeah. I really feel like that is clearly. Barber, he's a master of fixing continuity. It's very clear he pays a lot of attention to it, and that's why we're stuck with Bumblebee so long. But he really wants to fix it. And this is one of those instances where he's like, I can't let it go, but I don't want to keep writing Prowl crappy, so now I'm just going to say a few things, and now Prowl is fine again. And that's all it takes. That's all it takes. Internet boards do not light a flame with questions like, man, why do they make this so awesome? This sucks now. It's just too cool. Well, except maybe. I just.
See, that's well, now
why
that
is this character written so well? I'm really sick of this pithy dialogue.
We've been sitting here for 2 hours going through this trade, and the more and more I think about it, I've just come to the realization that even though I think it's strange and weird that Bumblebee is the quote-unquote leader, figurehead, whatever you want to call him, honestly, making Optimus Prime leave was the best thing they could have done.
Yep.
It's kind of like Dan Slott switching Ock and Spidey's brains and having Ock be Spider-Man in Superior Spider. It really is. It's something different because what's the one thing everyone, not just us as Transformers fan, but everyone knows about Transformers? There's Optimus Prime
and Megatron.
And there's Megatron.
And they're always fighting. And
Neither one of them are anywhere in these 5 issues.
Yep. But yet we're really entertained with what's going on.
Exactly.
Well, in 10 minutes, Hasbro's going to order them back anyway, though.
You know what? I think Hasbro is just happy enough with what they're doing at IDW that they'll just say, you know what, we trust you guys, whatever. Go for it. Have fun.
That's only marginally true.
I disagree with that.
Shadow Play and the upcoming Optimus in this book were requested by Hasbro. And I don't think Hasbro's telling them what to do with all the pack-ins, but they're paying for those pack-ins.
They're not really back for good. They do only.
I'm just saying. Well, no, I think they handled that very well in these books. They didn't just bring him back, which.
But if IDW said no, we're not going to go do that, they would be all right with that, I think.
Yeah.
But IDW also would love their comics packed in with.
But IDW isn't stupid enough to test that, and I wouldn't be either.
Well, from a business standpoint, think about it. You get to find out that all of the comics that you've been writing for the last couple bits want to be used in toy packaging with Hasbro. Are you not going to go, you know what? I think I might be able to make a toy, make a comic that'll fit around that, because I would love to sell more comics and make more money, because that's exactly what's going to happen.
Think they're not paying for those? It's economic decision. And I understand it.
Even if they're not paying for it, if they're comics.
The poorer comics, and it has. I would even point out, I noticed that the comics were getting crappier before I even knew there were pack-ins. You can even read my reviews. When I'm referring to it, I don't even know what the problem is. But I'm like, this seems forced. Why are they putting these dumb things in here together? It's notable. And I wouldn't.
Two-edged sword. It really is. It's the two-edged sword.
And we'll get to Andrew's point about pack-ins and everything else when we get the Metro Titan.
Yeah, we should just address it at a future point. So,
all right. So the ending for issue 4 is Dirge is on the lam.
Dirge is still in the wrong place at the wrong time, unfortunately. And again, he sees another thing he shouldn't see, which is what happens between Prowl and Bombshell. And then he runs like a good little guy should do when you see something like that. If you can't kill it, you better run, and you better run, Forrest, run.
For all the running and secret keeping he does for the next 10 issues, what's really sad is he doesn't even really see what happens.
No, he doesn't.
If he had that secret. That would have been a big deal.
But it's the point that he's there. That was the problem.
Yeah. Well, I bet Bombshell's more concerned that he saw him Cerebro Shell Prowl than he is concerned that he saw Prowl shoot Bombshell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Probably-
really doesn't matter. The point is that he's a witness, and witnesses need to be destroyed.
Yeah.
Yes. So if issue 5 is supposed to be from the point of Ironhide, why is Ironhide not the cover or some action shot of it? Why is it the 3 governmental people?
Oh, please. After all the Beast Hunters things we've read with nothing pertinent on
I
mean, at least these guys are in the comic book.
Was that cover A? That was cover A.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean,
I
seriously.
understand that, but Ironhide, and I understand why they did Ironhide, Bumblebee, Prowl, and whoever the 4th one was. Wheeljack for Robots in Disguise #1 covers A through D for the collage. I understand that and I get that, but why couldn't you have had some other shot of Ironhide, whether it's an action shot, whether it's him,
It's because they'd had Ironhide on the cover just a few months ago.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I really like Ironhide so far. Favorite Autobot.
Ironhide really has his crap together in here. And he's like going between differing factions and talking to them and
Because
hashing
he's
crap
just
out.
that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
He doesn't
somebody-
really have any beefs with anybody.
No. And I love how he constantly doesn't want to reveal about his whole "I saw the future" thing.
I
thought that
they saw the future thing.
Huh?
I don't like just
What?
it just seems kind of I don't know. I guess we'll see what they turn it into later. But as it's just it's sitting there floating around the continuity the way it is, I find I dislike it. I didn't like that issue, so every time they bring it up, I'm just like, okay, whatever. And it's like I'm guessing it has some future meaning, but I certainly don't want that to be the future, frankly.
Yeah.
And
No.
and that whole comic, that was such a self-congratulatory flagellation about a run of comics that was dismal. So,
Wow.
I'm sorry. Well, there's all those, all those panels of, it was like these full-page spreads of moments from Costa's run, right? And you're supposed to be reading it like it's, the stills from the Civil War by Ken Burns. But, really Costa's run was a little bit more like the Benny Hill Show. That's the music I heard playing over it. It's like, look at all the dumb stuff I've done in the last 3 years. It's like, man, I would not be bragging about that so hard. And just to hear it when the side story of that is referenced as some big continuity point, I'm a little concerned.
This is why Costa happened and we moved on.
I'm just saying we could forget Costa happened and move on.
Yeah.
You could just never reference that. I mean, they didn't say that was Ironhide's vision in the comic. He was just in it. You could have just moved on and been like, and that's kind of what Costa was thinking would happen afterwards. Again, in his bid to write the last Transformers story. That was the finishing touch on that.
And again, Robots in Disguise shows you that there's not just one or two, even though this is Ironhide's issue, there's not just one or two stories going on in one issue. There's multiple angles to everything because you have to explain not really explain, but you have to show all the fallout of the previous issue with Prowl. And, of course, Bumblebee's in there as always, but
I think
I like
Skybite
it.
should have been on the cover.
Yeah, but then that would have been too much of a reveal, to be honest, because the covers would have been the covers are the ones that come out in the solicits months beforehand. So if we had known that Skybite was going to be in this issue, that is kind of like a little goodie that I'm glad they sat on, to be honest. I think the reason why they put what they did is just because that wasn't going to give any spoilers, but it was a nice little, hey, this is what's going on. Starscream and Metal Hawk and Bumblebee, they're all squabbling.
And Skybite, I think, is the first character from another continuity to pop up, which was really cool. Yeah. Especially it being, from this bygone era where they didn't have to get paid to put characters from other continuities in.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Lady Rex said that Bumblebee and Metalhawk and Starscream are all squabbling. The only thing I can think of is, who's the fourth Golden Girl right there? Who would they all be as the Golden Girls?
If they were the Golden Girls, let's see, who would the last Golden Girl be?
Well, you got Blanche, Rose, Dorothy, and Sophia.
Sophia's the little one, right?
Yeah, Sophia's Dorothy's mother.
But Sophia's the one that always says the cool lines, so it wouldn't be any three of those. Sophia would not be in that group. So who do we know that's got the really snipey lines that we could put in there?
I would just like to clarify, listening audience, that I only vaguely know what they're talking about because my grandparents sometimes would watch the Golden Girls, and because Deadpool occasionally makes B. Arthur jokes.
I've seen Golden Girls back in the day. I don't remember a lot of it, but I do remember Sophia being like the best one because she had all the snipey lines.
Yeah, she
made the
she
show.
had all the snipey lines.
And I really don't know anybody that could.
The guy who writes Arrested Development used to work on Golden Girls. That's all I know.
Okay. All right, so Skybite is a flying shark with no water.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
It shouldn't work, but it kind of totally does.
Yeah.
He writes
agree.
poetry. We find
Air Shark. Hey, if they can do it in Doctor Who.
That's the best. Like, now, just to give the listeners some backstory here, I've heard of Skybite. I know there are several Transformers people on
the original Robots in Disguise.
Right.
The cartoon. So it
Right.
makes sense for him to be here.
Right, and I agree, even though that cartoon is utter crap.
It is.
Oh.
I haven't seen any of it. I just have everybody telling me that it's utter crap.
Yes,
Watch it. Well, now I kind of want to watch it because I've seen it.
Sometimes I put it on and let my kids watch it, and I'll leave it on, but I can't focus on it for long enough to keep watching it.
Yeah.
It's
kind of
so
like the first 5 issues of Prime. Episodes.
It was episode 29 of The Pull Bag where I had one of my Origins episodes and I talked to a guy named Joe Reed, and I was basically, I didn't tell him about Shockwave and his origin, but I was basically just saying, dude, you got to read these books. Dude, you got to read these books. Dude, you got to read these books. I was basically twisting his arm to read More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise, and he asked me, Robots in Disguise, does that have anything to do with that crappy cartoon? I'm like... Not really, except for the name. And then I realized, oh shit, there's Skybite. But no, I love Skybite in this. The poetry thing, again, it goes to Barber's writing and the characters. All these characters are so different. Who the hell expected a flying shark that doesn't have to be in water to write poetry? I mean, that's kind of like Swerve with his first blaster.
Yeah.
I think a Transformer writing poetry is if you can get away with that, then the flying shark is nothing to worry about.
Yeah, that's just a gimmick. And not only that is if he can write poetry, then somebody else can play jazz. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean,
which happens to be jazz.
As long as Sideburn doesn't show up and want to be a dance instructor, I think we're doing okay. You know?
Yeah. Out of the... Yeah, I'm not going to count Prime, but out of Dan Gilvezan, Johnny Young Bosch, and Bumper Robinson are the three main I know that voice Bumblebee. I can't hear any of them saying, "Stay out of this, Starscream." I just like...
Yeah. See, it's the drag. It's the Bumblebee drag.
Well, no, I'm not.
It's the Bumble baggage.
I'm just saying that again.
It's taking you out of it. It's the Bumble baggage. RID has the Bumble baggage. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
I gotta say too, this comic is just not as fun to read knowing that's not Prowl. It's just not. Even when he says something cool, I'm just like, but isn't that Prowl?
At the time, though, did you know that?
No, I enjoyed it at the time. I wouldn't go back and take my score off of it if I'd reviewed it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean for it. I will say that knowing it, I'm someone who rereads comics. There's a reread value to me.
Yeah.
And it's like retroactively, and there were things Prowl did that I thought really didn't make sense for his character that now do.
Yeah.
So there, in that way, I'm reading it. There are other points where I go, okay, now I get that. That upset me before, but now I get that.
This
But
is
there are
why
other
it was
points
so
that I
good.
liked that now I'm like, I don't want to read the Bombshell comic.
Well, that's what made it so good, is the fact that it was subtle. It wasn't just blatantly, oh, we're really going to show Prowl just not being Prowl. It wasn't. Most of the time, it was him being him. He was right. He was saying the words that need to be said, but then he would do things that weren't necessarily what Prowl would do.
Well, the way Prowl put it, he was not in control at all this whole time. But I like to think it wasn't just Bombshell trying to talk like Prowl. I like to think it was Bombshell pointing
Manipulating
in the direction he wanted Prowl to go and
manipulating him into the direction. Yeah.
And then he did them like Prowl would do them if he meant to do them.
Yeah.
But Prowl himself said, he seemed to express that he was, cognizant of being controlled and of the whole time. And he was just completely couldn't control himself.
Yeah.
So he's, it's not quite Prowl, but I'd like to at least think it's, the clever things he says are Prowl saying clever things and not Bombshell.
Well, it could just be him saying them, but it's Bombshell that's behind it.
Right.
He's giving him the push, and all he's doing
made it
is
almost like it's like Bombshell is making artificial Prowl to walk around. Oh,
how creepy would that be? He's in your head, you're saying it exactly the way he wants, and you're like, oh, it sounds like me, but it's not me.
Exactly. Well, Bombshell really said it like he was really controlling Prowl's faculties.
Yeah.
More than puppeting Prowl's body. He was like, I was in control of all his, millions of whatever a second he can do, calculations a second. I had all those things at my disposal, which indicates to me that he was, Bombshell was essentially like made himself a Prowl to do what he wanted, rather than like, I would like Prowl's left finger to pull this trigger now.
Or the fact that he just say, okay, Prowl's not here. It's Bombshell in the head, and it's Bombshell talking through.
Right.
It's like, no, it was all about. It's like Prowl is stuck inside of his head, seeing a shattered glass version of him doing what he shouldn't be doing.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'd like to think of it as, and that makes it more enjoyable. It's a little that's a little bit of conjecture, but it does fit the way they described it to some degree. So
yeah,
I'd like to think it's that because it makes me at least get to have my Prowl fun. Which this book really needs for me to to enjoy properly.
Ender is constantly on the prowl for fun. Okay, Skybite writes poetry. Yay.
And he's like the new guy if you came in on this issue and you saw what the Autobots were doing, you'd be like, crap, why the hell did I come back here? I'm going to get in my ship and fly away. Because if you look at it from Skybite's point of view, he sees some pretty tough stuff. He's like, what the hell is going on here? Why are you guys...
Frankly, that's what all the nails should be thinking, isn't it?
Again, this is the reason why I think they're staying there, is because there's enough rumor going around that the Autobots killed their own, that they're being numb. They're like, we're stuck here. Why did we come home?
That's been the problem with the whole premise. Frankly, all these Transformers left, right? Especially right now.
Well, the other reason why they left is because Optimus Prime let them go.
That's true. I guess when they left the planet, it was to avoid these two factions shooting at each other.
Yeah.
Now, as far as I can tell, they've been shooting at each other nonstop. Particularly recently, I wouldn't have thought there would have been anything for Starscream to take over after Tron's bid. I would have thought it was like, you guys said the war was over and we could all come home. Well, we've been talking about it, and the war's not over. So we're going to leave again, and you guys give us a call if, you're ever all dead or anything, okay?
Yeah.
We'll catch you later. They're just, they are just having their war for the most part still.
Yep.
The premise of you can come home now to your barren wasteland doesn't seem to hold as much promise.
Well, it's not like Cybertron's giving details. It just said, come home.
That's exactly. Oh, yeah. No, I'm just saying, they're like, yay, we can come home to this planet that doesn't look anything like our planet, where these dickweeds are still shooting at each other.
And they don't realize the fact that they actually haven't been on the planet either. They made it so unlivable. This is the first time in years that they've been able to.
They came back. These guys are still there. The place is just wrecked. They're just like, what did you do?
It's like Vector Sigma played a cruel joke and turned all the nails into ice cream trucks.
Yeah. How do you ground the whole planet to glass?
Oh,
Wow.
that's a
Really
huge
just
sand trap right
was
there.
shooting each other this whole time. You know?
Yeah.
Just trumped it all down. Eventually, it all just.
Where's Rewind when you need it? You know, for him to plug into everybody and just explain everything. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
had
now
to
I see
bring
what
him up,
happened.
didn't
Yeah.
ya?
Did
You
you notice-
guys need to all be arrested. No. I have a better idea. You guys all need a sponsor, a nail sponsor to get over. We need to have an intervention here.
Well, it's just that they're so outnumbered. I feel like Metal Hawk should just been like when Bumblebee was like, "I'm in charge." He would just been like, "No, not really." I'm pretty sure we're in charge.
Well,
dude.
they were going to give him a chance. You know,
Yeah.
Optimus Prime left on that premise. You know, I think if Megatron would have been there too, they would have kicked him off as well. But
I don't
yeah.
think they'd have kicked Mega Prime off. Frankly, I think Prime could have gone out in that balcony and been like, "Shut up." They'd have been like, "Okay, we're sorry." Metal Hawk would have been like, "You're gonna let him get away with that?" I'm like, yeah, pretty much. We'll go back to our hovels now. They might have come out and complained again the next morning, but I think it would have been about the same result. Zip it.
So
I love how
Skybite, he
Prowl
finds
just-
dead heads and he starts writing poetry because he saw dead heads.
Yeah, it's like talking to you. And these scourge heads, they're a bit of a theme, aren't they? You know, I read all of, the Heart of Darkness stuff and then the
I'm sorry.
Void crap. Yeah, I know.
Really, really sorry that I had to, give that.
And I get that that's I know. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. I don't blame you.
Okay, good. I have other people that blame me.
No.
Lies.
See, I only tell people to read the good stuff. I get away with this crap. That's apparently when everyone turned into scourges, right?
Yeah, kind of. No. It was before that. It was back in the issues after All Hail Megatron, the Coda, where more of them. It was still Costa. Sorry to say, that was still Costa because it was a Costa issue that wrote that. So yeah. What can be said about that? Yeah.
I love how Prowl is like, and Ender's right. Ironhide basically says, take the ID chips out.
Yep.
You're not serious.
No, he was dead serious, and it was the right thing to do. It really was. It was a bad idea to begin with, and the only reason why it happened is because Prowl, he really is not okay without being out of control.
Yeah,
this is something
he's a control freak. Yeah.
Now that Ender's not on the call right now, I guess I can get away with saying that. Oh, he's back. Darn it.
Yeah.
So he is a control freak.
It was right at that part when then I didn't hear anything.
Prowl is a control freak, and the ID chips were his way of exacting control on a situation that was going to wildly move out of his control. The fact that it's at the point now where Ironhide says, no, we really need to remove those. It really is because at this point it is really important that they remove them. It's the festering wound in their society at this point that's just picking away at everything. Nobody can learn to trust if they are compelled to be doing what mommy and daddy are telling them to do, or even just daddy at this point.
Well, the chips in terms of a leadership situation, it was a mistake and a vindictive thing. If you wanted to really integrate the Decepticons, I think in reality it's one of those things like Prime would have said no, because when he heard Prowl give that suggestion, it wouldn't have been he would have known that it wasn't.
It was a bad idea.
I want to track the Decepticons, or we need to control them in some way. It would have been, Prowl. He knows Prowl well enough to have heard the true meaning of the sentence, which was, "I would like to put explosives in all the Decepticons' heads."
And he would have said, "No, Prowl, you can't do that." And Prowl would have been like, "Okay."
You can stop them from transforming, and you can track them wherever they go, but you cannot have a remote control to blow their heads up.
Yep.
And Prowl would have been like, "Oh, but Prime."
He said, no, it's not the right thing to do.
And this is seen as Ironhide kind of realizing, like, you know what? We cannot be peaceful if we have explosives in each other's heads.
Yep.
It will.
And see, that's the whole thing.
Exactly the scar on the Sneetch's belly. It's a bomb in your head. It is a difference in your social standing.
Yeah, it's not like you can just electroshock a Transformer back to life when he doesn't have his head anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of a permanent thing if you shoot it off.
Wrong. Excuse me.
That's true. It's true. Wrong.
Stop it.
Oh, and
Destructicons.
Wheeljack.
Yeah. I gotta say, yeah. We'll just say. I think we should just say flat out in IDW that a Transformer dies if they have their head blown off.
No.
Except that they don't.
Except that they don't. Yeah.
Ever. Has it ever worked? They haven't brought Horrible back yet, I guess.
No, that's right. They haven't brought him back yet.
Don't give them any ideas, damn it.
Yeah, stop. They could be listening to this podcast, in which case I'm going to apologize profusely.
Frankly, I'm just going to say, because you know why? Because I'd like there to be a Predaking someday in the comics. So I'm just going to say, if he walked out of the med bay in our ID next month with no other explanation than like, we finally got your head fixed, I would have no problem with it because it is entirely supported by this continuity. It is. There is no reason to think getting your head blown off kills you.
Well, and they do have Swindle, so Swindle could, find heads for them, That's what he does, right?
God,
well,
yes.
And there's the whole idea of shadow play. I mean, these people give each other new heads for Christmas.
Oh.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Megatron puts on new bodies like he's changing pajamas.
True.
Talk about the last issue 5.
Oh, jeez.
So Ironhide here, I think this is a point, frankly, I would have accepted. Look at this scene. Ironhide has talked with all the factions. He has the wise idea about what to do. He's got things under control. Everything he's listening to him. Bumblebee is standing just below his nipples. I think this is the part where Bumblebee should have been handed Ironhide his cane and been screw you guys, I'm going home. I'll be at the bar.
You mean if Blur would let him come in there, right?
Right. If Blur will let me come in, I'm going to go sit down at the bar for the next 3 weeks. Ironhide, have fun running Cybertron.
Yep.
And Prowl would have been so here's your agenda tomorrow. It's is that Bumblebee's agenda for tomorrow? I was nope. It says Ironhide right on the letterhead up here. I had these printed up 2 weeks ago. Say Starscream on the page after that? Don't look at that. Just hedging my bet.
Oh goodness.
Oh yeah, but
it's already breaking the bar.
Well, I'm not going to jump ahead to next week's podcast, obviously, because we've been here in this one way too long. But I was really hoping that something would have come of that when we get to issue 6, as far as the ending of issue 5. You can't leave issue 5 off with "till all are dead." You just can't do that. And if I was getting these back then singly, I would have most definitely picked up cover B, because cover B is Ironhide with an action shot by Casey Collier. So
completely overshadowing Bumblebee, who's placed skillfully in his crotch.
Oh, they also could have done Prowl doing a riot as well, because he does start a riot in this issue as well, because of the whole everything that's happened. It's just upping the ante, every single the political pressures that are going on or whatnot, and it's getting to the point where so many Decepticons are being arrested or hurt or injured that no one can take it anymore. And he starts a riot. He does start a riot, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, it was.
If you're going to make a graphic for this, if you want to, put a picture by me on this last page here, you see Prowl with his little eye roll there.
Oh, Prowl.
That'd be a good icon for me there.
The graphics for this 3-parter of Rid stuff were done months ago.
Yeah.
Well, and that all are dead thing, that again is a reference to the issue called the, post Costa Roundup thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever that was called. I think it had some name or
where he had his nice little, Pax Cybertronia or Cybertronia Pax.
It all turns out, and everyone else,
Yeah, all of this is pointless because we're all dead in the future.
Right. Literally, think of the arrogance of that.
Yeah.
This is everything that comes after this is going to be pointless because of this perceived future. Well, this is it. I think they have to mention it here if they bring it up, because they're going to have to at some point show that isn't the future. Because if
Yeah.
it is, why the hell am I reading this comic book?
Exactly.
That's what I think they
you
could
make
have
a
just
point.
dropped it.
Yeah,
But
and
I think
I hope Dark Cybertron kind of throws that out of the water. The fact that, well, and I think it kind of does for Ironhide as a character, because in the future issues he does get injured in a way that makes him think, oh, I thought I was indestructible, but I just got shot. Maybe I need to rethink that a little bit, because I could have died.
Yeah, I'd really like to see that retconned out of existence.
It will.
When Roberts and Barber were taking over, first words out of my mouth were like, reboot, just reboot. I don't care. Let it all go. I would rather see what these guys do on their own than watch them dig out of a hole for a year. Now, what I didn't know was that Roberts was going to completely circumvent that by skipping it. But I have, which was genius. It was genius. I don't want to downplay that.
Yeah,
I'm
because
just hoping that Dark Cybertron will at last be the end of the hole.
Yeah.
They'll
really
offload
like to
the rest
see-
of it.
Yeah, I'd really like to see that.
But that does kind of make sense, though, because, this is something that Matt said, after a year of writing, then it should be they should have set up to the point anywhere from 6 to 12 months into starting one. That's when it actually starts being yours. So it'll really prove whether or not John, and I think he will more than do a good job at it, but it'll at least put in the nail in the coffin. And at that point, it should all be John. It should not be, I'm not hampered anymore by the other stuff that came before. Now it's all me. It's all my stuff, and I'm responsible for if this ship sinks. So
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I want to say I don't look at this book and think this is bad or anything. I think John Barber's a great writer. I think he's done a great job. I don't think like you said, I don't think he could have gotten rid of Bumblebee any quicker. And at least certainly here.
Yeah.
My point in even pointing those instances out while we were talking about it was more to show that the Bumble baggage exists.
Yeah.
At this point,
I think it's good, though, that he did take the time that he did, because if his whole motivation in the first 6 issues was to get rid of Bumblebee, shouldn't the long term, shouldn't the actual conflict be the actual goal of the book? I think that if he had said, no, I'm gonna quickly make sure that it's my goal to undo everything that Mike Casa does in the first 6 issues.
No, well,
because then it would be just you're just focused on what, fixing everything to make it work for you.
He fixed Prowl in the first 5 seconds, and I think that was much more important for one.
Yeah.
Well,
that's because he carries.
I agree with you.
He carries, the first trade, the first 2 trades, I'd say almost, because we still wanted to know what was going on with Prowl. It was enough to motivate us to read into the next volume.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't him, but we only know that because we've read past that sense.
I know it's going to come up more and become what I would term as more of a problem than rather just pointing out the existence of what is a trend towards a problem.
Yeah.
20. Bumblebee is still in charge. And in fact, an issue or 2 ago, I had to read an issue where like half of it was about turning him back into a Camaro so he could still be in charge. So, I mean, like here, no, is it at a point where the Bumble baggage is really a concern? No, it's just the Bumble baggage. It is a distraction. It isn't helpful, but it's just what he has and he's going on with it. But it is going to get, a year is going to pass and there's going to be plenty more.
Yeah.
And that I think may not have been necessary. And, maybe it was, maybe I'm wrong, but I still feel like then at this point, I hope we're getting rid of it because it is the Bumble baggage.
Yeah. And I get you. I would like to see somebody else move up and have that character evolution at this point, because after a year of evolving Bumblebee, we got to the end of it and Bumblebee's still saying, I'm really just not cut out for this. And if he's still doubting himself at this point, then the reader is going to continue to doubt that, which is only going to continue unless he's trying to keep the conflict in that way, but not the focus, but just say, oh, I need to have somebody that's going to be really conflicted into this position. I was like, well, hey, you're doing pretty good with Starscream so far. He seems pretty conflicted,
Yeah, and
I expect things to come down on him. I expect that the more he continues to lead and have points of inactivity where he's just like, hey, I'm the leader, everything's great. And then everybody's like, no, it's not great because everything's going to hell. Please do something, lead us.
He's never going to do anything so bad that the Autobots are going to kick him out, because that's like not who they are. That's kind of part of the problem, is as a reader, even though it makes sense for them not to kick him out because that's not what they do, I'm getting really sick of reading about the sympathy leader of the Autobots.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What I was
like,
this is Bumblebee.
He's our leader. He really sucks at it, but none of us have the heart to tell him to stop.
Yes.
You know, like, that's not a very compelling read for me, the reader.
Yeah.
You know?
What I was going to say earlier is I'm so glad that Roberts actually circumvented the whole thing with More Than Meets the Eye and took them off planet, because, I mean, seriously, if you had the More Than Meets the Eye crew still on the planet, off in, Mega City 2 or something, or what, some other city out in the middle of the wilderness, it wouldn't have made for a really interesting story and all these interesting things that they see, out in the universe looking for this legendary round table of knights that they're looking for. And I think that was really, really good. And I also think it's good that, Barbara has set all the other characters, for the most part, ones we know, some that we may not know, on the planet and having some sort of conflict without actually having a war.
Yeah.
Well, I think, even from Costa's setup, Bumblebee would have been leader with Rodimus around for about 10 minutes. So Roberts really stole Costa's best hope of getting away from that quickly. I'm going to take the other leader, and I'm going to go away. You can have the bad leader. Tell me how that works out.
Help me, John Barber. You're my only hope.
Yeah.
All right, so wrapping up RID Volume 1. I know this has been a long podcast for us, and I know it's going to be a long podcast for the listeners, but it was fun. It was really awesome.
It was 5 issues, too. That's a lot. I take 1 hour per issue when I review.
Yeah, that's why I do them in trades, so I don't have to take... Yeah, no. Okay, so Ender, 0 to 5 stars, what would you rate RID Volume 1?
Can I use half stars?
Yep, there's halves in there.
3.5.
Okay, that, according to the GCRN rating system, is liked it. So, very, very awesome.
I might go to 3.75 if I could. I mean, I'd say I'm more than,
There's no 0.75.
I know, I'm just clarifying.
I know.
I've decided recently I hate the numbers, so.
I know. I know. I've seen all the tweets. I've seen all the Facebook updates. I know.
But the poor
for
listeners
me, well, I'll point them in the right direction. Send me links.
At Ender, that's easy to remember. Ender hates.
Yes, at Ender hates on Twitter. All right, so for me, outside of the little nitpicks with RC's design, I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, considering I'm nowhere near interested in any kind of politics, Transformers or otherwise. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I'm going to give it I really liked it. What about you, Amy?
I'm going to go on that vein, too, because after reading Costa's stuff, this was great. I was you know what? It's a solid 4 for me. I was completely happy with it. I wouldn't say it's perfect. There's definitely some things that you're right, Ender. The baggage of what came before does kind of drag it a little bit. But because it's handled so well, because we're actually getting a plot and a subplot and character development and world building and all of the things that I had hoped that we would have had before this, because it's doing all of those things for the first time in a long time, I really was really happy with it. And even going back and reading it, I have to say, there were a few parts that pulled me out I think in the first issue, but for the most part, I was pretty happy with it. I liked what was going with it. So I'd say I really liked it, and I still really like it after 2 years. So,
I think if I were to, in some sort of hypothetical universe, look at it and say, I am going to just give everything in these books a pass that I think is a result of Costa baggage. I'm just going to ignore all those facets of the. I'd say this is more like a 4.5 even. I mean, if I was just going to forgive all those things and pretend they'd, they weren't there.
See, that's the advantage
So, yeah.
I have over you guys. I never read the Cost of Crap, so
Well, no, but you're still enduring it here. It's still affecting your read. I mean, I'm saying I'm looking at this. I know it's not his fault. I know he's doing his best to correct it. So
Well, I
I'm
wouldn't
just
say
going to
he's-
pretend it's not
I
there.
wouldn't say he's actively trying to correct it. I think he's just trying to tell a really good story, and because of that, he needs some of these elements to change.
No,
And so
he's
that's why
actively
he's
trying
doing
to
that.
correct it. Look at that page with Prowl. He's like wiping out issues on purpose.
It wasn't something
He's-
he could work with. It kind of just
Of course
made
not. That's why he
okay.
has. He's doing the right thing. No, and the last thing when I said
disarmed
the Grant,
him.
what's it,
He
the Grant
needed an
Morrison
armed
syndrome?
Prowl.
The Grant Morrison syndrome, where he's like, I'm going to write the last comic. He did that with the X-Men. It was like they killed Magneto. He killed like 8 people to do this stuff. They literally came back the next issue, and Magneto was like, yes, I'm alive. That guy, they cut the head off. It just wasn't me.
yeah.
And they were like, well, who was it then? The Marvel was just like, we'll
was a
figure that
robot.
out later.
yeah,
We'll
it's a
tell you
robot.
later. And they did. They made up a reason for it eventually, but they didn't care. They immediately came back and said, we are not keeping this in our continuity.
Why did
I
you
mean,
print
and I
it
don't
to
blame them.
begin with then?
Because they had the great Grant Morrison writing, and he was leaving, and they let him write whatever he wanted on the way out the door.
All right.
Magneto like levels New York, and there's like Spider-Man set in New York. Does it mention he leveled New York? No. You know,
Yeah, that's a discussion for another day completely. You
I'm
can
just
go
saying
on
it's
and
the
on and
same
on
syndrome,
about
though.
your.
It's the same
Yeah.
syndrome though. It's that he levels Cybertron, he kills off everybody, and he's like, "Now go write some more comics. Good luck with that."
Prowl is just a much more
Yeah.
more interesting character when he's conflicted and he has a gun in his hand, rather
Yeah.
than being, oh, I'm just going to do what Optimus Prime says and everybody's happy, woohoo!
Well, and in terms of how quickly he fixed the Prowl thing and with how little effort, I think he very correctly gauged that fans hated Spotlight Prowl.
We were yelling at Adam. I think he couldn't,
Pulling it out of, he was like, hey, look, I'm going to eliminate this from continuity. Anybody care? No. Of
all
course
he
we-
has to do is read 15 of All Hail Megatron and see how awesome he is, and then
Yeah.
read, Costa's stuff and go, yeah, I kind of don't think that that's a good idea.
I gave Spotlight Prowl a 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
I got
I
letters
said I was
straight-
going to burn it. I said I was
Yeah,
going
Amy
to
said
burn
she's-
Spotlight Prowl.
All right, so we're gonna bring this part 1 to a close. Join us next week in part 2 when we go over in depth, hopefully not almost 3 hours, for Robots in Disguise Volume 2.
You're really ambitious.
I know. I'm optimistic.
That's not going to happen.
sadly.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to be a Negatron.
Somebody's seen my Facebook page.
Yes, of course. So for now, I am TFG and Mike with.
Lady Rack.
And Ender, who thinks we should make a video of us burning Spotlight Prowl.
Do it now.
And now, yeah. There's nobody.
Make
left
your
to-
great escape in the comics, and we will
El
catch you next
Spotlight
week.
Prowl en fuego.
Make your great escape in the comics, and we will catch you next week on the pullback. Since I have to talk this fast, because Ender won't shut up.
Shut up. Shut up? Why, cite me. You don't think I'm the kind that would keep blabbing. Some people never know when to stop. When I'm told to shut up, I shut up. Shut up, shutting up.
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Coming to Grand Rapids, Michigan on September 21st and 22nd is GrandCon Gaming and Comics Convention, presented by Celebration Cinemas. Join us in playing or chatting it up with fellow enthusiasts in a community that understands your passions. Get lost in the adventure of your favorite role-playing game. Admire costumes and art from vendors and attendees. Meet the creators behind your favorite mainstream and independent games and comic books. Check out unpublished games and sneak peek at things to come. You can get all this and more at GrandCon. For more information, please visit www.grand-con.com. You just heard the latest episode of The Pullback, GCRN's comic book review podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you were leaving the message for and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. You can send us an email, feedback@geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @GeekCastRadio. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.